Yes, yes, yes.
Come be a part of
Rastafari, LOJ, Lionel Jew Society.
where Hebrew feels like home.
Shavua Tov, Shavua Tov. Good Shavua, good strong, good new seven, what they call the week. But may you keep in the way, the truth, and life, and may you be strong. Chazak, chazak. Shalom, chaverim, shalom. This is Yadin here. Yadin right here. Here. New Shabua here. Moving to the third. Here with the third of the seven Shabuot, the 7 weeks of comfort here as we come to what is often called and referred to as the fall festival season. When the scriptures it speaks about tabernacles, the tabernacles, aka the ingathering. Yes, the ingathering at the end of the year. So greetings, Yeshua Shalom Chabarim, fellow Talmudim, fellow disciples, especially the brethren them. Yeah, man, we're gonna have to get it together, chop it up, come into a new we call it the semester, a new semester here. When we come to the end of the season, as it were, when we come to the seventh of the seven feast festivals, appointments, for us in the Brit Chadasha, in spirit and in truth. And it's a good time to, start. And even for ones who may not have started, even ourselves, we're really pushing ourselves to get into our notes. It's interesting, there's different cycles and seasons. In previous seasons, we have a lot of notebooks, like notes, from the Torah reading and feeding, you know. And there's a lot of benefit from journaling, journaling in our studies. Even when you get to hear or reason with different ones, or you hear reasoning. Sometimes just have that notebook when you're even watching certain videos or ones are teaching on something. Take some notes, write down some notes on it. Oh, I gotta look this up. Dang. What they call it? Let me rewind that. If you can, it also helps to strengthen our memory. So hopefully, we get more and more, not just hopefully, but willfully. We have to will it fully to the fullness. You know what I mean? Little by little, step by step, side by side. The previous Torah portion to this, the small steps, small steps. So here we're at the 47th sabbatical study for this Shabbat. Shalom, Chavarim, Shalom. Ones coming in, the gathering. And definitely need to get into more studies. You know what I mean? We're into the studies, yeah, but it's going back to that journaling. I got to look this up. Let me see if I can look this up just while we chat as ones come in. Let's see. What was it? Synaptic. Let's go right here. Synaptic. Right? Synaptic. Right, synaptic connections, right, synaptic connections, right, with in the brain with writing. There we go. In the brain, right. The brain is that physical organ that our mind, right, uses and utilize. Connections in the brain with writing. Writing by hand. Let me write this. So yeah, writing by hand. Right. There's important something that, and we're not saying don't use the technology. Okay. You see, I'm on actually the laptop right here. I need to bring this up for y'all. Let this be a teachable moment. Let's do this again right here. Let's see. Can we just use this right here? Let's see if we can use this right here instead of typing it. Synaptic connections in the brain with writing by hand. Okay, thank you very much, AI servants. Yes. Okay, perfect. Well, they say only God and His Word is perfect, but we in God and His Word is in I. So perfect. Here we go, right here, just to show and share this right here. Yeah, because we spoke about this, and I'm here up to Mariama Tene, one of our previous, we could say, co-podcasters, broadcasters on our previous back in the what they call that again? I already forgot about them. Blog Talk. How could you forget about Blog Talk? I wonder how Blog Talk Betty is doing. I hope Betty she got maybe a new job. You see Betty, you know who Betty was? Betty was like when you log in, this voice that you hear, and also like that you hear, like an automated AI something. But you see on the screen right here, synaptic connection. But she did a podcast. You might be working on something, but if that comes more and more to fruition, we'll definitely share that. So some of the brothers and sisters and others, if we spoke about doing something on the podcast, like the new season coming up, would be a great time to kind of you know, um, it's like in the fall season of the year, right? Even in certain industries, right? Other industries, like their cycles and seasons is like sometimes when they'll come out like with new things, like sometimes series, movies, other things will come out. But they figure over the summer people are out and about. You know what I mean? And if you watch some series, your favorite series, you'll notice they go on a hiatus, like for a moment. So I pointed out because here for us in the feast and the festival, here we're at the third of the seven. So that means third of the seven. So two have already fulfilled, right? That means we have five more, right, weeks, right, or five more sevens till we come to the appointed season that's referred to as harvest. The har- well, it is a harvest season. It's an ingathering at the end of the year, but it's called tabernacles when we will gather in our crops at the end of the year. So you see here, synaptic connections in the brain with writing by hand. Synaptic connections in the brain with writing by hand. Now, Mariam Tanay, aka BU Tilful, she brought forward a whole research, a research and a revelation that really provoked, critical thinking, but hopefully also application, right? And she spoke about how the writing by hand, compared to how we use the technology today, right, affects more areas, right, within our brain. You know what I mean? More connections are made. In other words, if we recall correctly, using the computer, like as we text with our finger and all that, right? Or even talk to text or however it be, right? Doesn't make as many, at least with the finger typing on the way we do today, right? There's about, I think, six or so, right? See, if I wrote it down, if I wrote it down, I might remember it a little better, right? But writing by hand significantly enhances brain connectivity compared to typing. Uh oh, uh oh, uh oh. Brain connectivity. Now, we're not going to go deep. Well, we don't expect to go deep on this, but there's a question in that first part of the first sentence, at least with ones like myself. Right? There's a question there. Right? They got a black man's handwriting. Is that a black man's hand over there? I mean, are we racist? That if we say there's only one race, humanity, in that sense, we still be racist. Anyway, be that as it may, it is. We got to save that right there because maybe we'll use this for in the future to just touch on this point. Okay, brain connectivity to what? Right, writing by hand significantly. Writing by hand significantly enhances brain connectivity compared to typing. So they're saying that writing by hand significantly. I stumbled a little bit. You heard that? I don't know if you want to hear me. So we did what we were taught, right? Go just sound it out significantly, and then once your mouth get it, then you're like writing by hand significantly. Significantly does what? Enhances brain connect, but it doesn't say brain connectivity to what, right? Brain connectivity to what, right? I say it connects the brain connectivity to our mind, to our mind. See, our mind is that part that is not, how can we say, tangible. It's like when they talk about the soul, right? They can't really take the soul so much, at least they have not been able to. Let's put it like that. But so far, they cannot, right? Examine the soul, in the same way that you can examine the body or even brain. You know what I mean? Because the brain is a physical organ, right? So the brain is like, what is the brain like? The brain is like our hard drive. Like the hard drive on the computer, like the hard drive. Like it's the brain of the of the machine, so to speak, right? And then you using like the hard drive, you are the mind, if you understand the analogy there. But now in us, we have like, the organs and the brain. So the brain connectivity, they don't tell us here to what is the brain being connectivity to, to coin a phrase, right? So what is the brain being connectivity, right? What's it being connectivity to, right? The connection is, we say, with the mind, right? With our mind, and therefore, the Bible will say with our heart and our mind. I don't know if you see you see where we're going. The 47th sabbatical study, re, see, re, see, seen, sight, particularly in areas crucial for learning and memory. Let's zoom in on this so everybody, right, can see this mind. Right. So right here, you see what it says? Writing. Okay, we that part, but let's zoom in on the next part that's not highlighted. Particularly in areas crucial for learning and memory, writing by hand. Because she said, in what I recall her saying is that, there's only a few connections, maybe 6 or 7 or so, well, definitely less than 10 connections with writing by hand, right? However, with no, I said that wrong. Slika li, right? There's a few connections that are made, right, type than 10. I think about 6 or 7. But with writing over something to show whether 6 or 20, but it was up there in the 20 connections, right? That are interesting, right? Right. But this is what discipleship is. I mean, look at the book. Say that that time, the disciple whom Yeshua, Jesus loves. Who's that? He loves everybody. Does he really? Show me chapters. Well, God's, you see what it, we ask him, Jesus, right? Show me where it says Jesus, Jesus, Yeshua, right? It says God, his Father, right? Our Father, his God, our God, so loved the world that he gave Jesus, right? But be that as, what I mean, be that as it may, right? But let's get back to this right here. Don't want to go off on a tangent, however geometrical it might be. This heightened connectivity, right? So areas of our brain that are crucial, right, for learning and memory are connected, right, through writing, because disciple and discipleship. So the disciple that Yeshua loved was John. Remember that one. It's in the Gospel of John. Ha besora ha kadosha al pi Yohanan, right? The holy gospel upon the mouth of John. That's how I like to say the witness, the testimony, the mouth of John, right? Where in John's gospel he speaks that. But in the final, at least, book that we have in most New Testament scriptures, the Brit Hadasha, we have the Chazon. The Chazon. What is the Chazon? The Chazon is a vision. Without a vision, right, my people perish, right, for lack of knowledge. But without vision, there's a part that speaks about vision. I think that's in Proverbs, right? The vision, right? So in the book called Revelation, what is the one witnessing everything they're witnessing? If you read through it, what is the command, the main command, right? Well, actually, check this out. This is Revelation, an interesting book. One of the commands is to read, right? Well, and it says, "Blessed is he who reads." Well, there's a blessing if you read. It's not really a command to read, but there is a blessing, right? That if you read, the blessed is he who read this and keep and observe it. But over and over, right? But especially as you get into the first part of Revelation, right? It says, "Write." Right? Write those things. Write. And notice how we have that in Revelation, and also with the giving of the first and the greatest of the commandments that we have in Deuteronomy chapter 6, right? Verses 4, right, to 9, right there. It doesn't say to write them on the doorposts, right? On, right? Like, and bind them on our hand. You see what I'm saying? Even though one might, well, it says right is right. Isn't that right? So This heightened connectivity driven by the intricate hand movements. Look at what it says. This heightened, so part of the height, this is part of the reason why a lot of us type and use the other. I think we need to get a balance. This is just, most time when we teach, we try to keep like our personal, subjective, overly subjective opinions to ourselves, keep it objective. But just right here, this is from I right here where it says driven by intricately intricate hand movements. So I think we need to balance, because sometimes some would teach it or share research and be like, that's why we should never use type the computer. And then sometimes people who are weak minded, weak willed, they'd be like, yeah, even though some points was made, but it's like the old 1 2 1 2. You know what I mean? Say two true statements and then they say a lie. You know what I mean? So you have to watch that right there. But a balance, right? And fear, the kind of fear motivated stuff. You know what I mean? Disempowering stuff, right? But the balance is important, right? Of course, use the technology here, but I think that's the challenging thing, because most of us do use what we use because it is easier. Right? Now we can just talk to text. You know what I'm saying? But notice what it says. This heightened connectivity is driven, right, by the intricate hand movements. Right? I'll share this with the Habarim and the Hebrew for Rastafari Talmudim that, yeah, we're seeking to, and thank you, Queen Makeda, Malka Makeda, because she had shared some of her notes from her copybook on our Hebrew for Rastafari, group and everything like that. And looking at it, it kind of prompted me even again to get a little more. I've learned the script form of what's called Hebrew or Yehudi. However, when you stop doing something for a while, you still kind of know it. You can recognize generally, you can probably read it, but it's like the old getting back on the horse, proverbially speaking, getting back in the groove of things. But the part here that catches my attention is the intricate hand movements of writing. The very thing that some of us find like, man, I don't got time for all that. I can just talk to text. Well, yeah, in some situations, that's it. That is most efficient. In others, texting is most efficient. I mean, instead of sitting down writing somebody a letter and putting in the post, I mean, you could do that, right? But it's also, probably easy to send an email, But I'm just saying the balance for us as disciples, as Talmudim, in writing, because we can point to how the Torah says to write, right, to those covenant keeping Israelites. That's right. And also, right, to the disciples, right, particularly to the one whom it says Yeshua loved. Now, that does not mean he didn't love the other disciples, but you see, it says, may the redeemed of the Lord say so. In other words, may the redeemed, we can even say, may the saves of the Lord say so. So if Yahweh has done something for us, then speak on it. Yeah, bless it. You know what I'm saying? So in John's gospel, he speaks on the fact that he recognizes, right? He's not talking about, well, he loves me more than this one or that. No, no, no. He says, and he turned to the disciple whom he loved, right? And the same disciple whom he loved. You know what I'm saying? So it's not like in a competitive jealousy or nothing like that. It's just as the word says, let the redeemed of Yahweh say so, right? Hint, hint, hint. You know what I mean? This heightened connectivity. Okay, I read that part. And sensory feedback. Look what it says. And sensory feedback involved in handwriting strengthens, chazak, wenit chazek, or in the modern enunciation, chazak, venit chazek, and make us nit chazek, strengthen, encourage one another. But no, this strengthens neural pathways, and facilitates memory formation. Mm-mm-mm. You see what I'm saying? You know what I mean? So the ancients understood, right? Ones would say, well, they didn't have the technology. Mm, the technology wasn't universal as it is today. I'm not going to say the technology, some of these things didn't exist in slightly different form. No, no, no. Ain't nothing new under the sun, right? No, I can't prove it, but I'm holding to principle of the word. Yeah? right? And just realismism, as some would say. But in elaboration, let's go into this a little bit more, right? Let's bring this out right here, right? This is our opening subject matter right here for this 47th sabbatical study Shabua, right here at the second day, moving into the third day, and we want to remind myself, and others, and the listeners, especially the disciples. Let's get into our writing, our journaling, and our noting, right? Let it be duly noted. And as not just as an encouragement, but hopefully won't be encouraged by understanding that our memories, our minds, our brains is strengthened by writing. Doesn't mean you have to just write like a maniac or something like that. Just I'm gonna write all the time. You know what I mean? No, but it especially means that in such things that are important, right? In the walk and the way, what I mean, of our Godfather and King, especially those, of the name, but we as once lost, now found, as Yah's people, as Jah's people. So elaboration. Let's elaborate on this. Increase brain activity. Increase brain activity. Studies using brain imaging have shown that writing by hand activates activates a wider range of brain regions. They always say, we only use 5% of our brain. I mean, that seems to be the case when you see how people go about, how people are going, right? How people go on, you know what I mean? Then, yeah, they probably only use maybe less than five right there, right? However, notice this right here. If we want to reverse that, right? If we want to reverse that, right? Therefore, writing, right? Writing is like an exercise, and that's another thing that some of y'all are regularly about your exercise, and others should be encouraged, exercise according, right, to thee, like know yourself, what I mean? Know what you need to exercise, what I'm saying? Not going to be like, well, everybody should do this and this and this and this. No, 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 no. You know what I'm saying? That's not what we're going to say, but exercise. And those who might go to the biblical verse, well, it says like physical exercise does a little good. I mean, even the Bible says it does a little good, right? So we're just going to balance it here, but I'm talking about the exercise of writing exercise. It helps to increase our brain activity, and we have more use of this super, right, computer, right, including those involved in motor functions, visual processing, right? And memory formation compared to typing. Now here is the irony. The irony, right? Here's what's ironic or ironic. Here is what is ironic, that the computers that we have, right? The technology, the principles are really based on man, right? It's based on man and our brain and our mind. So see how that goes? That's why I say we have to balance, right? Good over evil balance. You know what I'm saying? That kind of balance. Memory and learning. The enhanced brain connectivity, right? Resulting from handwriting is linked to improved memory and learning. Right? And I must admit this, and some of the fellow disciples, Talmudim, if any are in the chat and you have this, then just testify, just give some of the other ones a testimony of this, that sometimes by being more diligent in notes, like when I go through studies and just okay, I read something, I reasoned on something, or I learned something, let me just write that down. Even if it's not fully like a whole book, not writing like a book so much, but some key things, it's easier to recall them even when the book is not even there, right? And notice that, right? And then it can get to this point. Now, this is what you have to be aware of, because this is what happened to I and a few others. It gets to a point when you're so diligent in that you're recalling vast amounts of data, bang, 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 bang. You know what I'm saying? Until you stop writing, and that is when it, then you almost have to like start over. You have to kind of do over. This is some of the what it says, the best practices and procedures
Discipleship radio.
for the discipleship, right? The precise hand movements and sensory feedback And since you know when you're writing something, and this is another thing that happens. If you haven't written for a while, you know, someone say this, man, I don't mind writing, but I don't like my handwriting. Well, have you ever heard, right? Practice makes perfect, right? Have you put it into practice to see whether it's true? That's the only way you can really find out that you don't practice. So practice makes perfect. So if our writing is not, please you just keep do right, and then you just focus on you know what you're doing, right, and not so much get caught up on the aesthetics, right? But the precise hand movements and sensory feedback involved in forming letters, they stimulate brain areas associated with encoding and retaining information. How are you going to stay on code if you can retain what it says here? Right? How are we going to stay on code if we can, right, encode it and retain information? Right? You know, like what's the code? Oh man, I forgot the code. Why you forget the code? Right? Educational implications. Educational. Right? What does our Godfather and King of Kings, the elect of God, right, says? He says, education is the key. Yes? So, educational implications. The findings suggest that incorporating handwriting practice in educational settings, discipleship is an educational setting. Even if you are sitting by yourself, not really, you know, you're not alone, but you know what I'm saying, but by yourself, you know what I mean? That is still an educational sitting. I mean, an educational setting. Sit, set. You know, in the Hebrew, there's the word sum, seem, that means to put or to set something, right? It's kind of interesting, but it can also mean to sit something, to place something, the educational, especially for younger children. What did Robeno, Yeshua, who the world called Jesus, Jesus of Nazareth, Yeshua HaNotri, what he says, ye must be as a what? Hmm? You must be big. You must be, he says, first of all, he says, you must be born again, right? You must be born again. That's the first thing. You must be born again, right? And then he says, you must be as a what? As a child, as a child, right? Well, I'm a big person. Well, you ever see born again? Well, I've been born again, but I've been born big. You've been born big. No. But for younger children, I'm saying these things so we can apply it. So any of these little, psychological obstacles, you know what I mean? You'll be able, like it says, because of my God, I have leaped over a wall. Check, check, right? Can be beneficial. So it can benefit younger children, of course, but of course, right? And even us, right, as we are born again, right, in the regeneration, following the Son of Man in the regeneration, and utilize it, you know what I mean? And grow in grace and in knowledge. Can be beneficial for establishing establishing those strong neural pathways and optimizing learning conditions. Now, notice this is all talking about our brain, but listen to the language. It sounds like we're talking about like a computer, like your computer's slow. Computer, mind, brain, supercomputer. Your computer's slow. You know what I mean? And you take it to someone and they say, all right, here's what we got to do. I got to clean it. Here we got to reboot it, reset it, do what they do. Right. But here, this is what we can do, within, right. And for the benefit in the way, right. Handwriting versus typing, right. Another category, just three more categories. This is the third of the three, right? While typing is efficient for information processing, handwriting engages. Oh wow, oh wow. I just thought of brothers and sisters. I know it says, bless the works of our hands. Bless the works of our handwriting, my handwriting, yeah. Right? The hand. And notice that the word in Hebrew for thanks, toda, right? From the dictu, we say the grammar and conjugation and build, it comes from the root word yada. And yada, which can either mean in the Hebrew two truths, it can mean to throw, to shoot, to aim, yada, and it also means to thank and to confess, right? Basically, the word toda for thanks, it means to hand it. So even at the root of the word for thanks, and the use of the hands to bind them, bind on our what? You know what I mean? You know, Our hands, the hand, handwriting. So while typing is efficient for information processing or processing, if you please, handwriting engages more complex neural circuits and sensory feedback loops. Look at that. We got sensory feedback loops, mm, right? Leading to more robust brain connectivity and potentially the potential. Remember that verse in Deuteronomy 8:18. Remember, Yahweh, my Eloheinu, is He who gives us the power, the ability, the potentiality. Potential is strength, actually, right? Strength, for the potential, right? He gives the power to get wealth. Why? So that he may establish his covenant. So here, speaking about handwriting and the hand. So when we say the baraka, right, or the baraka is said, right, and we say amen, let it be so, right, for him to bless the works of our hands, bless the works of our hands. May he bless our handwriting in Yeshua's name, right? And get those better learning outcomes, the potentially better learning outcomes, right? Because sometimes one might say, man, I've listened. Yeah, I've listened, and I've watched and I've listened, right? But have you written? You haven't written. You listen. Oh, well, I've texted. Okay, but have you written down? Have you written down what you texted? Right. Specific brain regions, specific targeting. Right. Research indicates that handwriting activates areas like the um pare, what is his parieto Parieto. Yeah, sometimes we come across a word. Anyway, Parieto and central regions, but we keep it pushing, No, there's no shame in that, right? Parieto, right? You know what I'm gonna do right here? Because I'm not confident that I am saying it correctly, right? So what I'm gonna do right here is I'm gonna go to this here. Parieto. See, I was not saying it correctly. Parieto. The way the translator is saying sound like parieto. Parieto. Wow, that's interesting. The T and the D. Sometimes in ancient languages, some people prefer a T sound while other people prefer a D sound. So some word like that will for D will be T and T would be D. But here, let me hear them one more time. The way parieto. All right, parieto. Let's come again. Let's rewind and come again. Rewind and come again. All right. So even right there, hopefully that can help someone. Let's rewind first. Again, again. Ani le choser. I repeat. Ndegana again. Specific brain regions. Research indicates that handwriting activates areas like the parietal, let me say one, parietal and central regions, which are known to be involved, that are known to be involved in memory formation. Look at that, forming memories. How many times does Yahweh Eloheinu say, right, to remember, Zakor et Yom HaShabbat, Lik Adisho, remember, right, the Sabbath day. See, and now we think about it in light of um, what they call science. The word science equals knowledge, and accurate science, accurate knowledge. Then we start to look at the scripts and say, wait, this is why Yahweh says over and over, Hashem says to remember. He wanted the Bnei Yisrael, and the faithful to form what? Right? Form memory. Form memory. He created, you know what I mean? He formed, he created, and he formed, right? And through that creation and that reforming process, we can also reform, right? Yes, yes. And the processing of new information. So writing helps us to process new information. So I'm sharing this with y'all, but I'm kind of admitting, a little flaw. It says admit your faults one to another. Well, yeah. I've been zealous on that. I've encouraged others on that. Been doing that for X amount of time, and then it just dropped down, just stop, right? But I begin to notice that this super strong memory sometimes it's like it's not as sharp. Keep it well sharp. Like I said, it's to teach it to your children. That word there in the Shema in Deuteronomy chapter 4, right, verses 6 to 9, the word diligently teach it. It means to sharpen it, right? To keep it sharp. So specific brain regions, right? The parietal, right? And central regions. I'm gonna be like a little child. When you learn something or correct something, you keep repeating it over and over because what you're doing, right, is helping the memory formation, right? Is involved in memory formation, writing, hand writing, and the processing of new information. Lastly but not leastly here, right? Sensory integration, the senses. The senses. Right? So here's where we can take our senses, right? That in misuse will be foolish. Remember there was the five wise and the five foolish virgins? Check that out, right? Wise, right? Senses, our senses. But they say we have five main senses, and there are five main senses that are kind of connectable, right? Physically. There are other senses that are not as connectable to physical, like our seeing is connected to our eyes, our smelling to our nose, our speaking to our mouth, our hearing to our ears, and our kind of feeling, as it were, right, to our touch. And keep it in touch to our writing. Let's check that right there. So sensory and integrating these senses, right? Integrating these senses. I could go into this too in the scripts. The way when we see the Hebrew or the language and the faith is the Hebrews, and the Yehudi, the language, and understanding what it means, it integrates these senses. You know what I mean? In fact, right? Even with this Torah reading and feeding here, re, see, the command to see, re, right? Sensory integration. The act of writing, especially handwriting, it involves a rich interplay, right? And kind of like integration, weaving, an interplay of visual, what we see, seeing, of motor, right? Movement, the motor, right? And of pro proprioceptive. Now that's an interesting one right there. Let me zoom in on that one right there. Have you ever come across this word before? Proprioceptive. Proprioceptive. All together now. Proprioceptive. So what is proprioceptive? What's proprioceptive? Right? It is the sense of body, right? Of body position. Stop slapping. Right? Of body position. Of body position information. Interesting. Yeah, like when you sit up straight, keep your back straight and your feet, like firm and flat footed as it was, which contributes, right? Contributes to the complexity and the benefits of the process. Right? So handwriting, right? Handwriting, but not typewriting, right? Leads to there's some other interesting research here. Not going to go through this right here right now, but neuroscience, right, is behind writing, handwriting versus typing. Who wins, right? Well, who wins is hands down on the page writing. That wins hands down is handwriting, that wins right there. So some other very good, just scrolling through this here. And if ones and ones want to just follow up on this exact search that we just searched, so you'll find something hopefully similar or the same, right? Synaptic connections in the brain with writing by hand. Look at me saying it the old fashioned writing by hand or handwriting, but writing by hand. So here, just on the handwriting right there, right? And yeah, because I think that by even sharing that, I've kind of like fallen short on that right there, and this is like a fault that I'm seeking to kind of recover. I'm like in recovery from lack of writing, handwriting, and I can see, since it's been like a moment that sort of activity almost every day, at least 2, 3 times a day, would be involved in some handwriting, right? And sometimes that will connect with like the Torah studies, and discipleship sort of studies right there, writing down words, writing down meanings, writing down, certain principles or lessons or, just key things that you find that are key. Don't limit yourself, right? Because your hand needs more exercise and you might have to, overcome the spirit of laziness. You know what I mean? Or, what I mean? That way, like, man, what, do I have to do this? So, you don't have to, right? But the benefits, hopefully, ones and ones find out some of the benefits right here, here, here.
Come be a part of. Come be a part
All
of.
right,
Come be a part
LOJ,
of.
Line of Juice Society.
Where Hebrew feels like home.
Well, maybe say it like this: we're writing, writing, right. Here. Let's begin off right here, right now, right here. This new Shabua here, right here. We're in the third, right, of the 7 Shabbats of comfort, right, based on that first Shabbat of comfort, Nachamu, Ami, comfort y'all, my people. Right here. Let's bring forward um, today's daily psalm right here, Psalm 70, right? Psalm 70, right? First word, well, the psalm for the day that has been, right? Let's put it like that. Because here we're between the evenings, good evening, Ereb Tov, good night, Laila Tov, right? And a good morning, Boker Tov, the Boker, the break of day, Tov. Right here, reflecting on the daily psalm of the day, and hopefully one's second day of the Shavua, second day of the week that they call Monday was good, and hopefully this Shavua will be told, will be well by Shem Yeshua HaMashiach. Here is Psalm 70.
Psalm 70.
מזמור עין למנצח לדוד להזכיר.
Make haste, O God, to deliver me.
אלוהים להצילנו.
Make haste to help me, O Lord.
אדוני לעזרתי חושה.
Let them be ashamed and confounded.
יבושו ויחפרו.
Let them be ashamed and confounded that seek after my soul. Let them be turned backward and put to confusion that desire my hurt. Let them be turned back for a reward of their shame that say, Aha.
האומרים
Let all those that seek thee rejoice and be glad in thee. And let such as love thy salvation say continually, Let God be magnified.
ויאמרו תמיד יגדל אלוהים אוהבי ישועתך.
But I am poor and needy. Make haste unto me, O God. Thou art my help and my deliverer. O Lord, make no tarrying.
Yes. Make no delay, make no tarrying. Here. Excuse me for a moment. Just wanna, you know, um, practice what we preach right there, and just a little writing, But here. So we have Psalm 70, Mizmor Ein, Hebrew letter Ein. Let's go through this right here, Ein. Now this was really very interesting about this Torah reading and feeding, right? Right. This is part of Re. Keep the 70 on there, but Re right here. And you can see it's the eyeglasses, like a forest, seeing the forest for the trees, so to speak, right there, proverbially. So we have this Torah reading and feeding Re. Now we have a little audible we like to share that was actually connected when the psalm rose up during the Ikev, the previous Shavua, right? But here Mizmor Ein. Let's see if we do this. Ein. Interesting enough, Ein is the I, right? Ein in the Hebrew, right? In the Yehudit, in the language of the Hebrews, the Yehudit means Re'eh. So Re'eh right here means to see, right? Re is like a command, see. Seen, sight, Re. So you know the name of the first, who was the firstborn of Abino Yaakov? Who was the firstborn of our father Jacob, right? The firstborn, right, was Reu Bain. Let me bring it up. There we go. Reu Bain, right? Reu Bain. Reuben, right? Reu Bain. Now, the Hebrew letter Ein, right, has a numerical value. Some say I, right? They say the sound is I. The sound is ah. It's an ah sound, right? The sound is, it's a hard A, right? Not a soft A. Let's bring this up right here so we can maybe demonstrate here. So in the later Asherit, the Asherit is the script post Babylonian captivity. Some will call it the Square Hebrew, right? That is the script right there, right? That superseded the other font type, the older font type. So let me go over here. Okay, here we'll begin with this here, right here on the Psalm, right, and also how the Psalm, yeah, He'ach, He'ach. There's the Ein. You see right there, that's the Ein. On the screen right there is the Ein. And then you see it in the different forms, right? From like the Paleo, right, to the cursive. There also is the later form in what's known as the Asherit, right? So yes, give thanks right there. The Asherit right there, right? Let it scroll. We'll see to zoom in on it, do a little Ein lesson, right? So that right there, the word ayin, right? Ayin basically means I, right? Now that's the Asherit, the square Hebrew right there, the B on W, right? The black on white. Now I want to show you this right here. So when you look in a proper like Torah scroll, right? And you see the psalm. This is the psalm laid out right there, right? The first, we said the first part. It's a short psalm. It's only 5 verses, right? It's like Likul Batalawa. It's small but very important. So you see the Ein, and this is the letter here at the top. So when we speak about Perek Ein or Mizmor Ein, right? We're saying Psalm Ein. So the letters also have a numerical value. Now remember, we was talking about the hand, and the hand links with one of the senses, right? And also the hand and the brain for the function of the soul, the spirit, the mind, and the cognitive ability. Now here, this is Ein, and this symbolizes the eye, right? Ein in Hebrew is the eye. Mhm. Like the I, the EYE. We say I, EYE. In the Hebrew, we say Ein, Ein, Ein. Ein is the I, right? Ein is the I. So this is the letter right there. Just want to bring out that glyph right there, right? Let's go through this right here. Let's scroll all the way out. Show our suitcase. Like for example, we have Ezra, or in some forms dialect Ozer, Ezer, either the different dialects. It's still the same language, even English. Some say tomato, you say no, that's no word. There's no word tomato, it's only tomato. You know what I mean? That's foolish. Same thing for the ancients. So we have Ozer and also Ezer, right? Right. Let's go over here. Let's scroll out from this, right? Okay, so here we have Tehillim. Tehillim refers to praises. Tehillim. The book of Psalms is known as Sefer Tehillim. Sefer HaTehillim, Sefer, the book Tehillim, right? So here, the Hebrew underneath right there, let's go zoom in on this right here. The Hebrew underneath this there, right, reading from right hand to left, is Tehillim Perek Ein. Tehillim Perek Ein. Tehillim. So from on the right hand side, is the Tav, is the Tau, the Hey, the Yod, the Lamed, the Yod, and the Meme. Or in simple English, Latin letters, is the T, the H, the Y, the L, the Y, and the M. Enunciated for purpose and meaning as Tehillim. Tehillim. So Tehillim is psalms from the halal, come from the word halal, like in the hallelujah. Yeah, from that right there, Tehillim. Praises, boast, right? The sense of glory, right? Praise, but the word has at the root a sense of boast. Hallelujah, hallelujah, the halal sense. Yeah. Next to it, after on the other side, the hyphen on the left hand is perek. Perek is a word we use like for chapter in Hebrew, right? The perek, right? Like almost like perek, right? It's an interesting word because from perek in the other form as ferek, right? In the ancient Afro-Semitic language, when we add a causative aleph to it, we can and what we say and tighten it. We have Afrik, Afrik, like Africa. Actually, the word Africa comes from the Afro-Shemitic word that means like to portion something, like to divide it into portions, right? It's a very interesting word, but here, this word perek, right? Let's just zoom in on it right there. This is the word right here that takes the main stage, perek. Perek, chapter, perek on, right? So this psalm here, Psalm 70, right? Perek on. As you said, the Hebrew letters also do double and some say triple duty, as numerical value, as number values. So perek ein would be to say chapter 70, right? And therefore the psalm, right, 70 is what we're referring to. So sometimes I would say Tehillim ein, right, or Mizmor ein, right, or even perek, as we have here, perek ein. So I want to show you right there. You see the difference of font? So there are different font types. Many people call the Paleo, the Asherit. These are just two different font types. Like on the computer, we have different fonts, right? Does the font change the language? Question. Does the font change the language? If I'm writing in English, I'm using English fonts and decide not to use Times Roman, and I decide to use Helvetica or Arial or Arial as they call it, Arial or Arial, right? Does that mean I'm speaking now a different language because I decide to change the font? No, it doesn't, right? So right here. Let me see if I have any more. Okay, here we go. That's what was still before. So here, now, we're going to see to tell you the truth. That means we're going to tell you what we regard as false, and then give my reasoning. And then anyone who want to take the opposite side, we can have a discussion. They say the sound is silent. That's not true. The sound is a hard A, right? The sound is a hard A. It's ein, right? If in the word aleph, the aleph is soft. So there are hard and there are soft sounds in the ancient Afro-Shemitic language. How do we know this? By comparing with other Afro-Shemitic languages. You know what I mean? Like the Ge'ez, like the Royal Amharic, like even Arabic, right? Or even Aramaic. You know what I mean? And Aramaic has had a lot of influence in an interesting way on some of the Ge'ez and the Amharic. So it's interesting to see those cultures. And so the legends like the Queen of Sheba, the King Solomon, the Israelites in Ethiopia are not just legends, but they are facts and reality that's backed up by other intrinsic information that could not just poof, could not just Big Bang, Big Bang there. You know what I mean? In a sense, these seeds grew. You know what I mean? But it's not silent. They say the sound is silent. That's a lie. You know what I mean? Mm-mm. Ein, right? What the sound goes through is seven forms. So there is there's the u, e, a, I, and the o. So there's those forms of those seven primary. Now on the right hand side, you see the modern cursive. You see the modern cursive that looks like like a loop, as it were. Then you see the ancient, what's called the ancient Hebrew or the Paleo, right? You see it on the other side, on the left hand side, right? Let's scroll down. Now here in the center, now it tells us the number value. The number value is correct. The numerical value is 70. And it's interesting because in some of the other African, Afro-Shemitic, Afro-Asiatic languages, we see there's a correspondence of a lot of inner value and meaning, right? And remember that Ethiopia had received first, we say the Old Testament Hebrew Tanakh, right? At least the earliest part up to the time of Solomon, right? In Old Testament times, right? And also after Ezra and the Israelites of Ethiopia had communion and communication and exchange scrolls. This is also another somewhat suppressed, right, Judaic or fact, historical fact, right? But I put it out on the table because hopefully we'll pick up on it more. You know what I mean? So put it out there so the naysayers can say nay. Hopefully they'll give some argument behind it, but they'll probably just say nay. Now the Rashi script that becomes the latter rabbinical for some of the latter rabbinical. There's the earlier ones and the later ones, but this is the Rashi script, right? And then we have what's called the sitam. Most will say stam, sitam. This is what is usually in the Torah scroll script, right? And it's a little more like like when they have like old English, what they call it, Gothic, so to speak, during these periods of time, or even in some of the ancient times, or some of the different cultures, like you got Arabic too, and some of the other Afro-Shemitic languages might sometimes be stylized. So it's more of the stylized form of it, right? But so here from the early, right? The ancient Hebrew was called Paleo. Paleo, y'all, is a Greek word, so it's kind of interesting, right? There's I'm in the Paleo Hebrew. I'm not into Greek, but you calling it Paleo is a kind of a Greek way. Just better to say Old Hebrew, you know what I'm saying, or Old Hebrew script, right, so to speak, right? But you notice right here the modern cursive once again, but the main thing here is the numerical value. So we said we just zoom in, right? Zoom in on it. So what you see in the center is what is academically and properly known as the Asherit. Ashur is to say Assyria. Remember, after the tribe of Judah was in captivity, right, was in Babylon for those 70 years. So this is the script that developed, after that time. And this can be also attested to in many earlier manuscripts, as well. This Asherit, right? Asherit, because it was influenced by like the square Hebrew, was Yehudi was influenced, the Judahite language was influenced by, other font styles like the cuneiform and others. And remember, Assyria's main language was Aramaic. That's another important point to understand. Assyria. Assyria kind of serves almost like how English is, right, and how the Latin letters are. That the Latin letters sometimes they scroll across different, like the Latin letters are the English letters, right? And you notice that in Europe, just for example, by contrast, they all use the Latin letters, and even the English, it also used the Latin letters. So I say that to say that we can see some similarities. Like, for example, Aramaic, right, can be written with the same Asherit. You see what I'm saying? And so just to understand how the different font styles had developed. But that's not our main point, but here's the Ein, right, in the way that we read it, right, today. You know what I mean? And from the latter times. And I think some of these right here are some of the, okay, yeah. So we'll get into a little bit more on that, but there's a whole reason, right, that we wanted to share right here. Let's see if we can just share a little portion of it because, the time we began a little bit late, brothers and sisters. But since the psalm is Psalm 70 here before us, let's see if we can just share a little bit of this from the Ikeb. There was a connection with the Ikeb Torah portion. And we also see here there's a connection with this Torah portion here before us, Re'eh, which means to see, seen, sight. So Ikeb, Psalm 70, Ikeb, in Torah portion, Hebrew Bible song.
Today's daily psalm means more ayin, and we have also the ikeb, as the ikeb both appears. Yes. Shalom, Chabarim, shalom. Today's daily psalm means more ayin, ayin, the I. Ayin, also Hebrew alphanumerics, the number 70, standing for the number 70. So we have right here, Mizmor ayin, the 70th Psalm. And also with the season, here in the season, we have the 46th sabbatical study that's called Ikeb. Aikeb, and it shall come to pass. KJV says it shall come to pass. Consequently, because of Aikeb. Mizmor Ain, Psalm LXX, Psalm 70, a cry for help. A cry for help. Now we know that today's daily Psalm Mizmor Ain is a reproduction of the 40th. We have the 40th Psalm, right? We have the 40th Psalm. We have today's daily Psalm being a reproduction of Mizmor Main, Mizmor Min. The 40th Psalm, verses Hebraically 14 to 18, with an occasional change of the divine name, of the title and the divine name, the Hashem, to the title Elohim, and a few textual alterations. Verses were apparently detached to form a separate mizmor, separate intonation chant for use in the Heikal, the Beit Mikdash, the holy house, the temple, Kedash, say, Kaddish, Kiddush, liturgy. Although an indivisible dual speaks in his distress, his words were applied to the needs of the nation. So we have in this psalm, Mizmor Ain, an I and I. Right? According to I, Rastafari, Royal Order of Ethiopian Hebrews, we have an I, the indivisible dual. Though an individual speaks in his distress, in the I, his words, his debarim, the words were applied to the needs of a nation, were applied to the I and I. Now here with 46 sabbatical study for Shabbat, Aikeb, today's daily psalm, Mizmor Ain, and we have also the Aikeb, as the Aikeb both appears in the 40, as it appears in the 46th sabbatical study, in the first opening verse, and just to bring this out right here. And also, I think in chapter 8, but we have it here. V'hai Aikeb tishma'un et hamishpatim ha'eleu shemartem va asitem otam v'shamar Yahuwah Eloheka leka eta habrita v'eta ha'chesed asher nishba'a la aboteka. And it shall come to pass, because ye all hearken to these commandments and keep and do them, that Yahweh Eloheka, he who be thy Elohim, shall keep with thee the covenant and the mercy that he swore to thy fathers, that he swore to thy patriarchs. So the opening part, because ye all hearken to these ordinances, it shall come to pass. V'haya Aikeb tishma'una etaha mishpatim, and it shall come to pass. V'haya, with haya, it shall be haya. It shall be wahaya, Aikeb, the consequence. Also Aikeb, speaking of the heel. And Aikeb is found in the name of the patriarch Yaakov, Akab, the heel, right? The sense of the heel grabber, consequences, consequently, because of, the sense of either for reward, right, or for punishment, right? With haya Aikeb tishma'un, and it shall come to pass where haya Aikeb Tishma'un, because you Shema, Tishma'un, et ha-mishpatim, to these ordinances, ha'ele, et ha-mishpatim, ha'ele, these ordinances, ha-mishpatim, ha'ele, shemartem, and shemartem, and shamar, and keep them, shemartem, wa asitem, and do them, asitem, all time, and y'all do, wa asitem, otam, do them, with shamar Yahuwah, with shamar, and keeping and guarding, shall guard Yahuwah, he who be Eloheka, leka, shall guard, he who be thy Elohim, leka, to the eye, et ha-berit, the covenant, with et ha-chesed, and chesed, and the mercy and the loving kindness, the chesed, asher, that which nishba, that he nishba'a, that he swore, that he oathed, that he severed himself, nishba'a, la aboteka, to the I, abot, patriarchs, to the I, fathers, to thy fathers, as to say, to the I, forefathers. Now, here, we have it again, the Aikeb comes up again in this Torah reading and feeding. So here in chapter 9, Devarim Aikeb, in chapter 9, in the Sheni, right, we have the Sheni Aliyah for Devarim, Shabbat Devarim Aikeb. Right here in Hebraically verse 20 says, as the nations that Yahuwah maketh to perish before you, so shall y'all perish. Now this is the consequences. And it shall be, verse 19, Wahaya im shakoach, tishkach, im shakoach, tishkach, eta Yahuwah Eloheka, and it shall be wehaya, and to be im, if shakoach, tishkach, if you forgetting and forgetting, if you shall forget and forgetting and forgetting, and forgetting and forgetting et Yahuwah, he who be Eloheka, thy Elohim, right? And walk after other gods, v'halakta achrei Elohim achrim, after the Elohim achrim, other people's Elohim, wa evadtam, avatam, and you avad, and you serve them. In other words, like serve in the sense of enslave yourself to them. Tishatachawita, with tishatachawita, and you bow down and you worship them with tishatachawita lahem, to them lahem ha-edoti. I forewarn you, ha-edoti, I testify, bakem, against you all, ha-edoti bakem, hayom, this day, ki avod tovedun, ki abod tovedun. I testify to you this day that y'all shall surely perish. For perish, you will be perishing and perishing. Ki avod tovedun. Ki abod tovedun. Now bringing us to verse 20. Second place that we have Ikev right here, right, for this 46th sabbatical, looking at the psalm here in the season. Also Ikev, right, and the key word Ikev, it says, Kagoyim asher Yahuwah ma'avid mipanechem ken tovedun Ikev lo tishme'una b'kol Yahuwah Elohechem. As the nations that Yahuwah, he who be, maketh to perish before you, Kagoyim asher Yahuwah ma'avid mipanechem, ma'avid, to perish, ma'avid mipanechem, ma'avid mipanechem, perish before you. Cain, yes, so tovedun, you will perish, so will y'all perish. Cain tovedun, Ikev, Cain tovedun, Ikev, so shall y'all perish. Ikev, because Ikev, on the consequences of Ikev, because of following on the heels of Ikev, lo, not tishma'un, you will not shama'at tishma'un, you will not be hearkening, lo tishma'un, because in the voice, by way of the voice, Yahuwah, he who be Elohechem, to the voice of he who be y'all Elohim. So we have Ikev for the 46th sabbatical study, Shabbat Strong, as the name of the Torah reading and feeding for Shabbat Ikev, Devarim Ikev, Wahaya Ikev, Tishmon Etah HaMishpati, and it shall come to pass, the consequences, Wahaya Ikev. And then we have it right here, it says, Ikev, lo tishma'un, the consequences will be, Cain tovedun, Ikev, you will perish, y'all shall perish, Cain tovedun, Ikev, because, lo tishma'un, because you will not shama'a, you will not hear, you will not heed, you will not obey, to he who be. So we have this in Deuteronomy, here, Deuteronomy chapter 7, verse 12, as well as Deuteronomy chapter 8, verse 20, Hebraically, looking at the Hebrew, right here. So that right there being a groundation. And then in the 70th Psalm, that also corresponds usually here to this season, the 70th Psalm, the third verse we have, Yashuvu Aleikev, Ba Shetam, Ha Omri, Ha'eh, He'ah, Ha Omrim, He'ah. Let them be turned back because of their shame. Yashuvu Al Ikev, Yashuvu, may they be turned. KJV brings it out as, make them be turned back for a reward of their shame that say, Yashuvu al Ikev, Yashuvu, let them be turned all upon Ikev, upon the consequences, upon the because. Here KJV brings it out for a reward. So we have the consequence, a sense of consequence, because, so that literally from the Ikev we have the heal, the results of, the compensation of, or on the account of, in essence, because of, Yashuvu, let them be turned all upon Ikev, upon the consequences of. KJV brings it out for a reward, Bashtam, a reward, Bashtam. So we have Boshet. Interesting, in the Roland Hark we have the Bushti. We have a phrase that's called Bushti. And it's a phrase, interestingly enough, it's a phrase that refers to shame, but in some of the older, more archaic Amharic sense, and even some of the modern senses, it has to do with like sodomitish and sodomite activity, the boshet. So it's interesting that we have this word, shame, busha, boshet, shame, and we have in Bamarinya, the Royal Amharic, we have the phrase bushti, right, the bushti, but here in the Hebrew, bringing out the sense of boshet. right? The boshet, right? The boshet, right? It's a noun feminine right here, shame, the feeling, the condition of shame, the implication. Also, the boshet is an idol, a shame, confusion. So the sense of in the translation of shame and confusion, right? So here, the Hebrew, today's psalm, Mizmor Ayin, here the third verse. Here we have the third verse, right? The Gimel, the Gamel verse, Hebraically, which will be more corresponding to the second verse in the KJV. Depends on the KJV, King James Version. Might bring it out more as the, let's bring this up right here just to confirm it. Well, we have it too here in the third. Okay, you see how they stack it up right here. Yes, it's the third verse, the Gimel verse, right here. Yashuvu al Aikeb. Let them be turned back because of, for reward all upon Aikeb, on the consequences of, Bashtam, the consequences of their shame. Ha'omrim in the Hebrew is like the sayers. Amar, to say here, Omar, sayer, Ha'omrim, the sayers. Now some versions have Ha'omrim li, that say to me, Ha'omrim li, right? Ha'omrim, that added the li. But the Hebrew manuscripts, MSSs, right, might have the li there, to me, but the Masoretic text, right, lacks the to me, right? So some bring out that say to me, Ha'omrim li, the li. Here from the Masoretic and the Tanakh, we have Ha'omrim, the sayers, He'ah, the sayers, right? The sayers, He'ah. So He'ah, bringing out the sense of He'ah, almost like whoa, right? The He'ah. Now, some say it comes from a more like an archaic sense, He'ach, right? The He'ach. Yashuvu al Aikeb. Bashtam Haomrim He'ach. So what is He'ach? He'ach. Aha. Say like interjection. Aha. Right? We have the He, behold, the He, sense, behold, and then we have the Ach, whoa, yo, oh. This is expressive of grief or surprise. He'ach. So it could be expressive of grief or surprise, sometime in the KJV as or alas. You might see in some of the translations it has alas. Here in the KJV it has aha, he'ach. Yashuvu, al Aikeb, the reward, Bashtam, the reward of their Boshetam, their shame. Yashuvu, may they be turned, right? Turned backwards. Al Aikeb, on the consequences of Boshetam, their shame. Ha'omrim, the sayers, He'ach. Ha'omrim li, to me, He'ach, right? They say whoa, right? They try to express a sense of grief or a sense of woe upon I, right? Together. Now in the 40th Psalm we have together is added after abashed. May they be abashed, right? Put to shame, right? And to sweep away, right? After like the sense of my soul, right? By reason, right? Make them be turned back by reason of their shame. Yashuvu al Aikeva Bashatam. Ha'omri. He'ach. Let's say, aha. Let them be turned backward. So in the 40th Psalm, the reading is, let them be appalled. The two Hebrew words are the same except for one letter, right? Appalled, right? Perhaps the milder word was thought more suitable for the service, the abodah. I remember how the psalm here adapted for the temple, the Hekal, the Mikdash, Beit Mikdash liturgy, to me is omitted after that say, Ha'omrim. This may also point to the change from the personal, right, as in the earlier psalm, the more personal, the I sense, to here the I and I, to the sense of the I and I sense. So we have Aikeb, even Aikeb right here in today's daily psalm, Psalm 70, also to help bring out the sense in the Hebrew, Aikeb, of this word Aikeb, the consequences, right? Even the sense of a sense of the reciprocity. Right, we have the sense of the reciprocity as we look into Devarim, into Deuteronomy, especially here into this 46 sabbatical study for this Shabbat Strong. We have Deuteronomy chapter 7, verse 12, the key verse for Shabbat Devarim, Shabbat Aikeb, right? And then also in chapter 8 at verse 20. In chapter 8 and verse 20. And going a little bit more into the sense of the Aikeb, bringing out the sense of the Aikeb, Jehovah will keep to thee the covenant and the mercy that he hath sworn to thy fathers in the Aikeb, Asher, right? There is involved not only the idea of reciprocity, right? Because like the Hebrew karma, reciprocity, but everywhere also an allusion to reward or punishment, as we have this sense found within the Hebrew, even in Bereshith, in Genesis chapter 22, right? Chapter 22, verse 18, what do we have? Chabarim. V'hita barku V'zare'eka kol goyei ha'aretz aikeb asher shama'ita bikoli. So what do we have here? KJV brings out Genesis 22 and 18. And in thy seed shall all the nations of the earth be blessed. And in thy seed, hita barku, zarika, zarika kol goyi, all goyi haaretz, aikeb. Here we have aikeb, because, aikeb, in the sense of the aikeb, because, asher, because, right, because of that, shama'ita, aikeb asher shamaita. So we're saying here, aikeb shamaita bikoli, because you hear shamaita, you shama'a Yisrael, and in thy seed shall all the nations, the goyei haaretz, be blessed, right? Be blessed, right? V'hita varku, v'zarika, right? All of them being blessed. V'zarika, zara in the IC, zarika. Call all goyei, the nations. Goyei is constructive sentence of goyei. Here it is attached to the haaretz, the goyei, the nations of the earth, of the earthly plane. Aikeb, here's the key. Aikeb, because aikeb asher shemaita bikoli, because the eye, male, hearken, hear, shema, hear and obey, right? Hear and obey, bikoli, in by way of my voice, by way of my word. There's involved not only the idea of reciprocity, but everywhere we have the aikeb, also there's an allusion to reward or punishment. Devarim, Deuteronomy chapter 8, verse 20. Also in Numbers chapter 14 verse 24. Right, in the verse that King James brings out, but my servant Caleb, because he had another spirit with him and had followed me fully, him will I bring into the land whereinto he went, and his seed shall possess it, his seed shall possess her. Ve'avdi Caleb, Aikev. Ve'avdi Caleb, Aikev. Ve'avdi Caleb, Aikeb. This is the opening words right here. But my servant Caleb, because, but my servant Caleb, because, Abdi, Caleb, Aikeb, right? Because my servant Caleb, because, Haita Ruacha, Achreta Imo, Vaya Maleya Acharai, Vahe Viotiv, Il haaretz asher ba shama we zaro yorishena, and his descendants with zaro yorishena, with zaro, and his seed yorishena shall possess her. So we have it here with Abdi Caleb Aikeb, and my servant with Abdi, my servant Caleb, Aikeb, because Haita, right, because he had Ruach, right, Achret, because he had another spirit, Imo, with him, why Malay, and fully Achrai, after I, and fully after I, the sense of it like fully, he coming after I, fully following I, right, why or vai Malay, Achrai, Vaya malay acharai, vaya hevi otio, vihit some will say, wa hebi otio, ancient pointing, wa hebi otio, modern Hebrew, va hevi right, because he had followed il, right, the sense of I will bring him, right, I will bring him, wa hebi otio, va hevi I will bring him il haaretz, to the land Asher Ba, that which he went in, Shama, there, which land he went in there, into her. V'zaro yorishena. And his descendants, his seed shall possess her. So we have the sense of, right, not only the idea of reciprocity, but everywhere also there's an allusion to reward, either reward or punishment. Devarim, Deuteronomy 8 and 20, Numbers, right, 14:24, also in Psalm, right, Psalm 70 verse 3, right, and also with the 46 sabbatical study, that's Shabbat Aikeb, right, that Aikeb. So the chesed is a key word here, with 712 right here, with this Torah reading and feeding 46 of the sabbatical study, Shabbat study, for Shabbat Aikef. In the fuller verse, it had the chesed. Chesed, loving kindness. Chesed, the love. Loving kindness was the favor. Chesed was the favor displayed in the promises given to the patriarchs. Right? Aboteinu, our fathers, the patriarchs. Even the Hebrew trinity of the patriarchs, Abraham, Yitzhak, and Yaakov. The true ones, we could say, who were the Hasidim, right? The scriptural Hasidim, right? And he gave them this based on an oath. Just a key right there is based on oath. Right? He gave this to them, right? The key is that he gave and said, by myself have I sworn, saith Yahuwah, for because thou hast done, right, hast done this thing, and has not withheld thy son, thine only, right, the only son, thine only son, Wayomer be, Wayomer, and he said, be in me, Nishaba'iti, be Nishba'iti, be Nishba'iti. And he said, I have sworn by myself, be Nishba'iti. I have sworn by myself, Noom, Yahuwah, Noom, Yahuwah, Noom. It says, but actually Noom is an oracle, the oracle of Yahuwah, the oracle of he who be, Ki, because, Ki Ya'an, Ki Ya'an Asher, because, like an answer, because you have done this thing, because thou hast done this thing. The sense of the because here, we both have the key for Ya'an. Ya'an in the Hebrew is also, Ya'an is because, therefore, on account of, right, on account of, it has a sense of almost like answering because of the reason being Ki Ya'an Asher, that which Asita, that which you have done. Ki Ya'an Asher Asita et ha davar, et the word, right, because you have done this word. So the translator translates because you've done this thing, but the Hebrew sense also brings out the sense of because you have done this word. So davar is both word and a thing, a matter. Ki ya'ana ashar asita, etahad davar, because you have asita, the I male, etahad davar, because you have done this thing, because you have done this word, hazeh, hadavar, hazeh, because you've done hadavar, hazeh, the word, the this, the thing, the this, the matter, the this. Ki ya'ana ashar asita, etahadavar, hazeh. Vit lo and not vit lo with lo and not chasakta velo chasakta because you have not chasak to withhold, to restrain, to hold back, to keep in check, to restrain, right, to refrain, to spear, to preserve, the sense of holding back, to spear. In that sense, because you have not speared, you have not held back. Velo chasakta, because you have not held back. Eta binka, the I male son. Velo chasakta, eta binka, eta yechideka. Your own, the Yachid, remember talking about the Echad, Shema, Yahuwah Echad, and we have the Yachid, right? Here in the scripture, unlike Maimonides and some sectors of modern Yehudi net Judaism, they talk about the Yachid, almost in the sense of replacing the Echad. But the Yachid here is interesting because Yeshua, Robeno, and Yohanan in his gospel, John's gospel, where Yeshua says the only begotten Yachid, the Yachid. We have the Yachid. Yachid is a sense of the only, the one and only, in a sense of a solitary sense, in a sense of a unique sense. Here, as applied even to Yitzhak and as applied to Robenu Yeshua HaNotzri, he is the Yachid, the only begotten, like that one and only, right? The sense of united, the one who's united, the soul, beloved, the lonely, the only, right? Also in a sense of life. We can say like my life, like one's life is Yachid, right? It's as not to be replaced in that sense. Some place in the KJV translation, Yachid is brought out as darling, my darling one. You might find that in the KJV translation, my darling one, desolate. The sense of like an only child or only son is a Yachid, in a sense of solitary. But here's where it comes from, Bereshit. Genesis chapter 22, verse 16. Chapter 22, verse 16. And he said, by myself, Yahweh, by myself have I sworn, saith Yahuwah, the oracle of Yahuwah, of Jehovah, for because thou hast did this thing, because you have did this thing, because you have did this word that I spoke, and has not withheld thy son, thine only. In some version they have thine only son, right? But withheld thy son, thine only, right? Thy one and only. Why your merbi nisha ba'iti nuum Yahuwah ki ana asher asita eta hadavar hazet v'lo chasakta eta bin ka eta yechideka. And this too brings out the sense of Ikev. So the chesed is a key. The chesed, love, loving kindness, mercy, chesed, attribute of Yahuwah, of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Baruch Hashem. Also bring out the sense of the favor. We have the Hasid, the Hasidim, patriarchal Hasidim, the patriarchal, the Hebrew Trinity, Abraham, Yitzhak, and Yaakov. The favor displayed in the Yeh, and Amen, given to the patriarchs, Abotenu, on oath, right, on that Sheba, Sheba'ah, in Bereshit 22 and 16. Then when we continue with Shabbat, Ikev, right, from the first verse, the opening verse, chapter 7, right, verse 12, and verses 13 to 16 now brings out the sense of the chesed. This chesed hazeh, right, it flowed from the love of Elohim, Hailehem, to Yisrael, Yasharallah. And the love, ha-chesed, as it says, to keep the chesed, ha-chesed, the mercy, the loving kindness was manifested in the baraka, in the blessing, the increase, the prosperity, and the multiplying. And the multiplying of Ha'am, and the multiplying of people. And then as we go further in Devarim, chapter 7, verses 13 to 16, we have this section where the baraka, the blessing, the increase, the prosperity is then particularized by a further expansion of what we had from Shemot, from Exodus 23, verses 25 to 27. As a baraka, a blessing upon the fruit of the body, the fruit of the carbon, organic, korban of the body, the fruit of the field and the soil, as well as the rearing of the cattle, of the livestock, of the living creature. So here, Shema Yisrael, Sima Rastafari, Simi, Ethiopia hoy Simi, Jerusalem, Azin Biyit.
Come be a part of.
All right, and with Jake, Atlanta Jew Society.
Where Hebrew feels like home.
Yeah, that's a big revelation there. We had the Ikeb Torah portion, the 46, and at that time, during that record right there, we also had the 70th Psalm, according to royal order. And then as we went through the 70th Psalm, so here you see that the H6118 is the Ikeb, right? Ikeb word, right? So that was the previous Torah portion. So we kind of searched that key word, found it in Deuteronomy 8:20, 2 Samuel 12:6, 2 Samuel 12:10, Psalm 19:11. Moreover by them, excuse me, moreover by them. Now this is important because it speaks about the two witnesses. Here in Psalm 19, see the two witnesses of Yahweh Eloheinu, namely his witness in creation and nature and creation, and his witness in Torah, right? So when it goes through the various aspects, well, this is since we hear, let's go through it right here. So here from verse 7 of Psalm 19, so it speaks about the law, the Torah right here, yeah, Torah, the instruction, the direction of Yahweh, he who be, he who is who he is, right, is perfect, right? Perfect, converting the soul. Psychically, it can convert our psyche. The testimony. So here we have the edut, the testimony. Got to testify of Yahweh is sure. The testimony of Yahweh's testimony is Ne'eman, from Aman, Ne'eman, right? Making wise the simple. Keywords, the law, right? There's Torah, or the doctrine, the Torah, the instruction, converting the soul, right? Restoring the psyche, right? Then see the statutes, right? Pikudim, the statutes, the precepts of Yahweh. They are right. They are what? They're right, right? Yashar, right? They are right, upright. So it's about what is the book of the upright, right? The statutes, Pikudei Yahweh, they are right, right? Rejoicing the heart. And then it says the commandment, the mitzvah. It doesn't say commandments, right? But the commandment, the mitzvah, right, of Yahweh, the commandment of Yahweh is pure, enlightening the eyes. Interesting here. This brings us to what we were talking about, Psalm 70, right? Perek Ain or Tehillim Ain, Psalm 70, the Hebrew letter Ain. And now that letter, that first letter that we showed you, so you see, I don't know if you can see it here, we can't zoom in this right here, the original next to original, the Asherit glyphs, then the transliteration Ain, Ain, Ain. They put the H there, but it's not really yin. It's ayin, ayin, right? Ayin, right? You see, it's the eye, right? The physical eye, right? In the first of the two truths, right? The 1A1, right? The physical eye. And then it says, secondarily, as showing mental qualities, right? Now, remember, in going through this build and this research right here, it's a good thing we went here, right? Here we have, okay, the Paleo Hebrew letter I, right? Notice what it says, the Paleo Hebrew Ain, it says it represented by the pictograph of an eye. Check that out, of an eye. So you see how the meaning in the meaning, right? And this Torah reading and feeding here, the 47th is re, a, all together, re, si, re. Right? What was the first son of Yaakov? It was Reu. Reu is speaking to a group of people. Reu. Right? Reu. Right? Reu. See y'all, Reu ben. See y'all a son, Reuben. But here in this Torah reading and feeding 47, we have Re'eh. Re'eh is a command given to a singular male. Right? So speaking to one man, Re. Seen. So notice the connection here with the psalm here in this season, the Ayin, right? The 70th psalm right here. The ancient pictograph sign is an eye. The word Ayin itself means eye, right? They say in the Hebrew, the language of the Hebrews in Yehudit, and the letter's meaning extends. So the letter's meaning, even the letter's meaning, the letter, the Ayin, and also the word that's associated with it is Ayin, and in the ancient pictograph was a picture of an eye. Let me see if I can show and prove. All right, let's go right here. Show and prove. Let's show and prove right here. Okay, we can show and prove a little bit of right here. Picked up. Remember writing, handwriting. Right. So over here, ancient pictograph, the ancient Hebrew pictograph. You see right there, they're there, right? Ein, right? So an ancient, like this, or some ancient writing just write it as a circle, right? Almost as a circle, right? Here's another, the symbolic meaning of the Ein, right? The Ein. You see the I here, right here. The Hebrew is for Ein, right? Let's clear that. There we go. Ein, right? Right? And then we have the later Asherit, right, and Ain, right? Let's take a couple of words right here. So here you can see it, right? Good values, words that begin with Ain, right? With the Ain. Ayin, Ayin, right? What words do we have? We have gentleness, adinut, gentleness, adinut, pleasure, right? Oneg. Pleasure is oneg. Now I'm laughing because when people, when we grips up on with linguistics again, the type of tunes and ways, right? Oneg, pleasure, oneg, right? Humility. In the modern Hebrew, they'll say it as anava, right? But the ancient pointing is anawa, humility. Then we have independence, atzmaut. There it is, atzmaut, right? So just giving some examples, the Ein right here, right here in the stam, the later more calligraphic kind of representation right there, and some of the corresponding meanings that are read into the symbol shape of the letters, right? This is also very important teaching here of what the scripture brings out as the good eye, right? The Ein Tovah, Ein Toba, Ein Toba, the Ein Toba, and there's the Ein Hara. There's the Ein Hara, right? Ein Hara. Notice that the word Ein Hara, I don't know if you can see the last letter is the Ein, right? And here representing the will, right? The will, the eye and the will. Interesting here, symbolically, you see the two eyes. One eye is like straight across, and one eye is like on the side, or bent, right? So there's the good eye, right? The good eye, Ein Toba, 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 Ein Toba, and there's the evil eye, Ein Hara, Ha the Ra, Ein Hara, Ein Hara, right? So the evil eye. How do we look at things, right? How do we look at ourselves? With the good eye, with the bad eye, right? The good eye, right? And just take note, take note, right? Right now, we're speaking and teaching, but definitely got to take some notes on this right here. The good eye, the evil eye. So this is a really important lesson right here because the correspondence of the daily psalm according to the royal order of the Ethiopian Hebrews, Psalm 70, according to the Israelites of Ethiopia, Psalm 70, this Torah reading and feeding the 47th, right? So Psalm 70 in the Hebrew Mizmor Perek Ein, right? Psalm chapter 70, Ein. This letter here, this Torah reading and feeding, Re'eh. So Re, is the command to see. And what do we see with? We see with the Ein, with the eye. What does Robbeinu Yeshua Hanotri, our rabbi, the rabbi of rabbis, what does he say? You know what I mean? He says, if your eye be what? Huh? If your eye be single. Wow, the single eye. Now, I know some people say, "Oh, if you just write one eye, they'll say, oh, that's Illuminati. That's this, right?" But then, what does Yeshua mean when he says? They're not saying what they do with the eye. See, because there's the good eye and the bad eye. Check. Right? So looking at it from the good eye, right? The good eye. Right? Why callest thou me good? There's none good but Elohim. Yes. All right. So the good eye, right? This is an important teaching here. Just focusing on it for a moment, and ones hopefully pick up. But the single eye, right? You said unless your eye be single, if your eye be single, your whole body is full of light. It's full of illumination. But if it's not, right, then the whole body is. So you see the sense, and then also in the Shema and the Tefillah, right, from Deuteronomy chapter 6, verse 4 to verse 9, the full of full, right? 4 to 9, he says, bind them as a frontlet between your eyes. So now some people will tell you about, there's the third eye, the third eye, the third eye, right? But Yeshua speaks to us about the single eye. What does he mean by that? Right? And then when he speaks about the other one, he doesn't say the double eye, but he basically says your body is full of light, right? I mean, if your body's full of light, the single eye, but if it's not, then you're full of disillumination, right? So in the Torah, it says to bind them, right? Yahweh's words as frontlets between our eyes. So now think about when he tells about the third eye, it's actually the first eye. All right, think about it. It's that single eye. And then even science tell us there's what they call the frontal lobe. And there is how can we say a like an injury that some people may suffer to their frontal lobe. And they say with frontal lobe damage, sometimes people have control, or impulse, could have impulse issues, right? You can look up more and get more details for yourself on the frontal, So I'm going here, right? Because Yahweh's word goes there. You check, his word goes there. And then in reality, you say, wait, hold on for a moment. It says between the eyes. So you say, okay, even if we say it's not literally, right? And it's not, but definitely he gives us from low degrees to high degrees, earthly things. We got to understand the earthly things, right? So between the eyes, so this is the same place they call the so-called third eye, but actually it's that single eye, the eye of the mind. And then even science, and knowledge of things called, quote, science, true knowledge, true science, tells us that damage to that portion there can cause all sort of emotional, psychological problems for people. just to say the least of it. So just to kind of put these together, right? So we can get into this. We're going to segue to this Torah reading and feeding. Give thanks. This is another stylistic way, of writing it right here. And now we get the more, what some say the ancient, right? The more paleo, right? And there we have the I. When man and people wrote like natural things symbolically to convey ideas and meanings, right? Now it's interesting because when we look at the roots right here, we have the ancient, right? The ancient, the Ge'ez or the ancient, right? The ancient, then coming down to the Canaanite, Egyptian, then the Hebrew, as it's called. Then we get 1500, the Phoenician, the Hebrew. So you see how the Phoenicians did the Ain, right, as a circle. When we look at many of the ancients, right, the Kadmonim, right, the ancient ones, and then we see like the Canaanite. Now the Canaanite and the Phoenician is basically one and the same thing. Just want to point it out. Phoenician is a what's that, etonym, entonym, like it's like a name that others, the Greeks call those who sold purple, the merchants that sold purple, right? The merchants, the Canaanites that were merchants, they called them Phoenician because in their language, these people bring us the purple cloth, right? They know how to get the dye and get that mixed together and have some lovely fabric. So they call them the Phoenician. So Phoenician, not like a real people. It's like I gotta share with you how I had to make AI tell the truth. You know what I'm saying? Because AI was talking some stuff. You know what I mean? And it said, "Oh no," I said, "Is Phoenician a fake name or false name?" It said, "No, it's not a false name." Da, 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 da. It said, "Like I know what you mean." I was saying, "Yeah, you know what I mean." And then it talked about. So what? I said, "What did the Phoenicians call themselves?" And then I caught it. It was like, "Oh, Phoenicians call themselves." Well, actually, it's an ethnonym, and this is what is used by the Greeks. And I said, "Ah, I got you." So I screenshot that, to kind of share for another demonstration. But here, this is on the Ain, how many of the ancient languages, how it comes down to today, right? Then we have the South Arabian. The South Arabian over there, the S Arabian, that links with the Horn of Africa. Later on, what they call Yemen, right? The Yemen region, the Aden, that Gulf is called Aden, like we said, Aden is the same sense right there. Um, and so South Arabian kind of links with the Ge'ez and Ethiopic and also Yemen and Binyamin and Benjamin and yeah, all that good stuff, right? Let's scroll down here, the Greek, right? Then notice how the Greek, right? The Greek, 'cause we saw some people say, oh, Hebrew is Greek. No, it says that Japheth shall dwell in the tents of Shem. And one of the descendants of Japheth was Yawan or Javan. From those people came what we know as the Ionians. Before the Edomites, and other Eastern people came and upset their civil, called the Hellenists. Before the Hellenes was another people that took over the earlier people who were more, for lack of a better word, more melanated and black looking, mixed and black looking. It's very, very, very interesting history. So now we see the Aramaic. So you see when how the Aramaic kind of like cuts it like in a half circle and then have that little kind of line underneath it. And we can see how it comes down to how we see it today, right? Now the Punic, remember the Punic Wars, right? And then the later Hebrew, the 500, around 500 AD Hebrew. But you notice that before the Greek, we have the Greeks even on the chart, we have earlier Hebrew. So they try to fool you sometime and say, oh, well, Hebrew really come from Greek and it's no, well, maybe the sound that we say Hebrew, right, is based on, for the Europeans, what they got from the Greeks, because the Greeks were the smartest. That's why they collected the Hebrew documents, you know what I'm saying? And then claim them as their own. Gotcha, gotcha. Right. We get down to 100. We get down to 100. 100. That's an AD. That's 500 BC. All this is BC. Right. If I said AD, that was Slicha Ali. My bad there. But 100 BC. Then we get a later form of Greek. Then we see Latin. See how Latin follows the Greek. Then we get Aramaic. Right. The later Aramaic. So we have earlier Aramaic, later Aramaic. Then we have what they call the Arabic. Right. You see how they share similarity. You see the Samaritan. It's interesting because there's some later day Samaritan scrolls, and Samaritan. This is how we can know in part, right, that much of the Masoretic is it has witness, because in the Samaritan sometimes they spell out words a little more fully, right? And so therefore sometimes in the Hebrew, the reason for the later dots and the dashes is very important, because many people understood the language because the language was a part of the language they spoke. But as time went on, right, be that as it may, the Samaritan, and then we see even a later version, right, of the Hebrew testified around 100 BC. Right, just want to point out the Ain. This is our study about the Ain. Now, there's in Arabic. Anybody know Arabic? You know, in Arabic they have Ain, Qarain, Ain, Qarain, 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 Qarain. It's not an easy sound. It's like a GH attached to Ain. So attached to Ghain, Ghain. So they have Ain, Ghain, Ain, Ghain, Ain, Ghain, right? And that's a little harder kind of a sound, but you can see some of that right there. It's a secondary form that's testified. This form of Ghain is testified in like later times by in some forms of Arabic. I just want to point that out. Right over there. This is also another representation. So the position in the alphabet of this letter is the 16. So it's a 16 of 22. It's only two. It's only two. It's 16 of 22, right? And just want to show this right here, right? And then the earlier, remember the circle of the earlier, right? The circle of the earlier. Then some wrote it with the circle, and then some actually pictograph an eye, right? The paleo, what they call the paleo Hebrew ayin, represents an eye. And even the name of the letter is I, ayin, right? The word ayin not only means eye, but also an eye, like AI, one eye. Look at that. But also AI, AEYE, AEA, AEA they call I. Oh wow. Have we discovered something here? AI, right? As an but here's what they tell us in English. They say in English, before a vowel, like I, the word in English, EYE, that you can't say a. They say you have to say an. Like if I say a elephant, properly they say an elephant. An, like an, like an, yeah. So not AI or AI. That's to be decided. But also an I, right? Or AI and I, right? In the ground from which water flows. So the word ein, right, in a secondary form of ain, or een means a fountain or a spring, right? Why is the word for eye, the physical eye, and also a fountain, a spring, the same word, right? Because a fountain or spring is considered to be the eye, EYE, the eye of the land, right? In that sense, and some words that are connected. These charts, if you can find them, they're very good. They're kind of informative, very informative here. Not to go through the full, but you see words associated, right? So here, right? Okay. This is a little better. I don't know if you can see it clear. It's not a super clear, grab. But here the position is a 16th. So it's a 16th of 22 letters. So we talk about among disciples knowing the math, right? That means, starting with the basics, the 22 letters of the Hebrew alphabet. Start with the basics, Psalm 119. It goes through every 8 verses, it goes through the Hebrew Aleph Beit in order, right? So Ain is a 16th, the printed form, right? And the later Asherit form looks like that. But over here, when they say pronunciation, they say it's a glottal stop. So when you try to sound out you kind of bring you kind of touch that point in the throat to bring out that guttural sound. Ah, right. For Westerners, now this is more accurate. We can agree with this in context. For Westerners, those in the West, it's a silent letter, because in the West, people don't usually say ein. They usually don't say ein. They don't say oneg. They don't use the that sound is not part of Western words. So for a Western speaker, it's like a silent letter because they cannot say it. They're dumb to it in that sense. But practice, it can make perfect. You know what I mean? Practice right there, right? Yeah, yeah. So ein. So we have ein right there, and this is also another one right here. Ein, right? Ein. Now notice what's behind the ein, right? In the pictograph, right? In the it's the scales. You see the scales? It's the scales of the fulcrum. The fulcrum is the center bar. It's like a symbolic cross. Uh-oh. Right? A symbolic cross. If you look at the scales, you have the two arms, right? The two arms on either side, and the one standing in the midst, right? The tree of his cross, the cross of his tree. So equal measure, justice and wisdom awing, regard for regard, have regard for regard, with the same measure as we regard his instructions. Regard for regard, with the same measure as we regard his instruction, his authority. He will also regard us. So in measure, there's a teaching that based on study of the Torah to be summed up, that Yahweh deals with ones and ones measure for measure, right? Measure for measure, right? Also to perceive what we see, seen, sight with our eyes. What we see, seen, sight with the eye of the mind becomes a desire, the desire of our heart. Mm, desire of our heart. I have a brethren that repeats something like whatever one kind of longs for, in their heart, especially if it's not of his instruction. The tempter will seek to tempt. Unless we regard his instruction, unless we regard his instruction. We would say like respect, but regard is good. They begin with the R, right? And make them the filter of all our eyes perceive, right? Our ears, right, hear what we do, that symbolizes the hand, right? Where we go, our feet, right, the trod, the halak, and the halak to go, halaka to walk, right, the trod, with his instructions and regard of him as our heart's desire, our passion, that's the zeal, that's a zeal, right, the kina, right, the kina in a good sense, right, in the good way. That's like what Phineas. Remember what Phineas had? He had that zeal, right? He will also regard us, and by his yad, his hand. Remember Yahweh, he wrote those 10. He wrote the 10 words, the Aseret Hadebarim, the Aseret Hadebarim. He wrote it with his finger, and we know the finger is attached to his hand, cause us to walk upright, being our quote support structure. He's our support structure, right? The Shema from the Barim in Genesis chapter 6, 4, and 9. I have to give it to these ones here, right? Because this is good. This is good. This is links together the whole point of the teaching here. The Shema from the Barim chapter 6, verses 4 to 9 are our how-to, right? Our how to, right? Shema'ah, hear and obey. Shema'ah. Even the that ayn is at the end of Shema. Shema, right? It's not Shama. Shama is a whole different word, right? Shema, right? Hear and obey, oh Yisrael. So our how to. Deuteronomy chapter 6, verses 4 to 9, y'all. We focus a lot on verse 4, Shema Yisrael, Yahweh Eloheinu, Yahweh Echad. Hear, O Israel, right? He who be, who he be, our creator, judge, ruler, almighty power. Yahweh, he who be, who he be, Echad. He is the one, right? The one. So how to walk, right? The Shema gives us how to walk in the instructions, how to walk in Torah, his directions, his instruction, how to walk it out, to live it out, right? Show and prove, right? And regard of our beloved, of our authority, or if you please, authority, right? Our authority. When the instructions, remember instructions are the Torah, the Torot actually, right? But comes down to the singularity of Torah, right? When the instructions are applied, of the applied science. Science means knowledge. Right? So science means knowledge. Now, there's some things that you can know or that claims to be knowledge. So we call it pseudo, right? But there's the knowledge, right? So it's applying the science, applying what we know, right? As the frontlets, as the what? As the frontlets, right? Between our eyes. And that's the first eye. That's a single eye that Robenu Yeshua speaks to I and I about right there. As when we apply the instructions, right? Apply the science applied as the frontlets between our eyes and bound as a sign upon our hand. Right. That's right. So remember the handwriting, that this how all this links together, right? We will act the acts. It says the acts of the apostles. It didn't say the debates of the apostles. They had debates. That was some of it, but you know what I mean? It was the acts of the apostles. Right? It wasn't just like, okay, we read in the Bible of the apostles, though in the Acts they read the Bible, but it was the acts of the apostles. Check. So we bind it, right, as a sign upon our hand, right? Is this literal? We could. This is where the tefillin comes in and the phylacteries, the tefillin, right? Even Yeshua spoke about tefillin. He didn't say it was bad. He said that these people exaggerated this, right? You know, if we do something like even the fringes is because we look at it and we remember, right? Notice that it was to help memory. You know, sometimes to help our memory. You remember? I won't point to it, but it's a good example in The Color Purple kind of movie when I wanted to teach what Celia, whatever her name was, you know, the Whoopi Goldberg character, right? To teach her, you know, how to write, you know, like the different things, everything was like named something. That's also a great idea to teach one's children or to teach oneself or to learn as a child again, right? We will act and respond according to his right ruling, his righteous, because he is the right choice, the righteous ruling. Truly, Ein results in wisdom, right? Ein results in wisdom. That's why at the top of the tree, Kabbalistically speaking, there's the Ein Sof, right? There we go, right there, the Ein Sof, right? Right? Well, actually, that's the Ein Sof. There we go, the two letters, that's Ein, though it's spelled in English the same way. So if you see, you know, some words in Hebrew and try to figure out, like especially the A's, which A is it? Because it could be one of two different words. So we have the Ein here, right? So the letter is Ein, right? The sign is Ein. In fact, in Hebrew, the word for letter is oat, oat, right? Some say oath, but that's through a Eurocentric filter. It's oat, right? Oat. Well, what is oat? Oat is a sign, right? Oat is a sign, just like we said, his signs that Yahweh did in Mitzrayim and elsewhere, his otot. He says ototai, his signs, but it can also be his letters. You check how that goes? His letters, right? So the gematria, if you say, oh, well, people can do a lot of things with numbers. With anything can be used. Numbers can be used for good, numbers can be used for bad. You know what I mean? Water, is water good or evil? Water can be polluted, can be poison, right? So this water is poison. That means water is poison. That means that water is poison, not that water principally is poison, because water is very good. So the same thing with, you know, gematria is a Hebraic bringing out, right, in the Hebrew mind, right? But anyway, the value is 70. The meaning is I. The power ah, right? That sound. The type is single, right? The what is astrology or ah this is where it gets challenging, because people sometimes are so deep in a Eurocentric Western Gentile mind, can't understand the principles. Like, we can convert this to the tribes. Of course, yeah, this is the Greek horoscope, but then we know there's the 12. You remember the 12? But according to them, they say the Capricorn. And now when you get into the other people's thing, that's why it says not to go after the other people's thing. Right? Now, people say, well, don't learn the ways of the heathen. It's kind of late for that. What we should say now to them then, don't learn the ways, right? If you don't know the ways, well, you stay away from the ways, but in the real world, right, we have to unlearn those ways, especially if we have learned it. In a sense, we have practiced it. We have to don't do, right? Right? But tarot card. But some of these things, I'm gonna have some guests bring on, right? Even connect some things to scripture so ones will not be spooked out. Don't want the people to be spooked out. But they say Capricorn the devil, the goat. That's why everybody want to be the goat. Everybody's the goat, right? Right? The color is blue violet. The note is the A note. The alchemy is earthly. But now when we look at it Hebraically, it connects Tiferet, which is glory, and Tiferet is the Hebrew Tafari, to hold, right? To hold. So it connects glory in that sense, or beauty. Sometimes brought out as beauty, right? And glory, right? But beauty in that sense, right? The Hebrew Tafari, Tiferet, right? To hold, to majesty. Beauty to majesty. Glory to majesty. Right? Just don't bring that out right there. Right? Now that right there, we're gonna go over that. We understand what people are saying, but we're gonna have to disabuse them of some things. But that's a whole other thing. We don't want to bring it up right now. Here's the iron here, right, right, and then some people symbolically do these kind of things, and it's interesting. Don't make more out of it, but understand, the plain meaning. So, my brothers and sisters and brothers, right here, just gonna pull up on that. Now, here we like to segue. We're gonna give one. Since we did touch on Psalm 70, it's a little psalm, such a little psalm. If we do have time, we'll circle back to it, but we need to get into this Torah reading and feeding. But before that, wanted you to hear a little dub-wise right here. Actually, we go through it. It's a short psalm. I think we go through it in a short amount of minutes right here. Let's actually share this with you, verse by verse. Right? It's short psalm, 5 verses.
A cry, a shout for help. Mizmor Ain. Psalm 70. Psalm LXX. Mizmor Ain. A cry, a shout for help. La menatzeyach le David. Le Hazkir. For the leader. La menatzeyach. For the chief musician. For the overcomer. Le David of David. Le Hazkir. To make memorial, to bring to remembrance, to make memorial. Elohim le hatzelein Yahweh le ezrati chusha. Oh Elohim, deliver me, I live I. Elohim le hatzeleini. Le hatzeleini. Le hatzeleini. Deliver I, O Elohim. Elohim lehatzeleini, Yahweh le'ezrati chusha, O Jehovah, to help me, to help I, Yahweh le'ezrati chusha, make haste, chusha, yeboshu ve'yechaperu mibakshei nafshi, yisgu achor ve'yikalmu chafetzei ra'ati. Make them be ashamed and abashed that seek after my soul. Yevoshu ve'yachaperu mibakshei nafshi. Make them be ashamed. Yeboshu and abashed. Ve'yachaperu that seek after mibakshei nafshi. That seek after my soul, my psyche, mibakshei nafshi, yisgu achora, yikalmu chafetzei ra'ati. Make them be turned backward, yisgu achora, and brought to confusion. Yikalmu, that delight, those who delight in my hurt. Chafetzei ra'ati. Yashubu al aikeb ba shitam. Ha-omrim he'ach. Make them be turned back by reason of their shame. Yashuvu al aikeb ba shitam. That say ha-omrim, the sayers ha-omrim. He'ach, aha, ha'omrim, he'ach, Yasisu with Yisamhu Bika Kola Mibaksheka with Yomrua Tamid Yigdal Elohim. Oh Hebei Yishuateka, make all those that seek thee, the eye. Make all they who seek the eye rejoice and be glad in the eye. Yasisu we yismechu bika kol mebaksheka, and let make such as love thy salvation. Thy salvation say continually. With yomru tamid, and to say always. With omru, with yomru tamid, yigdal Elohim, make Elohim be magnified. Ohbe Yeshuateka, the lovers of the eye Yeshua. Ohbe Yeshuateka. Wa ani oni we ebyon Elohim chushali azariya ua mifalti ata Yahweh alate achar, but I am poor and needy. Wa ani oni, wa ani, and I, wa and ani, I oni poor with.
Pause right here. This is a perfect point right here about the hard and the soft sounds. This verse here, Psalm 17, means more ein. Here at the pasuk verse pasuk hey, right, the fifth verse, it says wa ani oni, wa ani oni. Some will say va'ani oni. In modern Hebrew, va'ani oni, right? But in ancient pointing, wa ani oni, wa ani. So the first one is I. Right? So if we say ani, wa ani, then we saying and I. No. Wa ani is I. Ani. Remember here you see, if you see the glyph that begins from the right hand side, right? That letter is the aleph. That's a soft A. Ani. And here in the next word we have ani. So it's ani. Ani. Here we have wa'ani, ani. But I am ani. I have been anna. Anna mean like to be like busy or even like afflicted, humbled, right? Poor, afflicted, humbled, right? And here we have this anna. Anna, the root verb to be occupied, busy with in one form, the two truths, or according to the context of spirit, to be afflicted, to be down pressed, humble, like afflicted, bowed down. So here we have, this is a perfect example in the last verse here. Wa'ani, ani, we'ebyon Elohim, chusha liya ezri, uwa mefalti ata, Yahweh, al te achar, Ata Yahuwah Al Ahar. Don't delay. So here's a perfect example right here of two words. If you look at the English, it seems like the same word. Ani, first person singular, ani, used for emphasis, ani. So he's saying for I myself, none other. For I am. Like somebody says, who is I am? You emphasize. So here, here, ani, ani. And here we have ani. You see it right there. So you have to look at the glyphs and see whether it's an aleph or it's an ain. Right? So it might seem similar in the Latin, the English, but it's not the same. So just want to bring that out because that's part of the point right here with this psalm, and also here with this Torah reading and feeding re'eh.
With ebyon and needy. Elohim chushali, oh Elohim, make haste for me. Chushali, Elohim, chushali, oh Elohim, chushali, make haste to I. Azari, ua mifalti ata, thou the I ata art my help, I help, Azri, and my deliverer. ומפלתי אתה, Yahuwah, alati achar, O Jehovah, tarry not, Yahweh, alati achar, O Jehovah, tarry not. Mizmor Ain. La menatziach, le David, le Hazkir, Elohim lehatzleini, Yahuwah le'ezrati chusha, Yeboshua we'yachipurua mebakshi nafshi, Yisgua achora we'yikalmua chefetzei ra'ati, Yashubu al akeb ba'shitam, Haomrim he'ach, Yasisua we yismechua beka kola mebakasheka we yomru tamid yigdal Elohim o hebe yeshuateka wani oni we ebyon Elohim chushali azariya u mefaltiya ata Yahuwah alate achar.
I'm only passing through.
Come be a part of.
Laura and Jake, you want to do society?
Where Hebrew feels like home.
Psalm 70.
מזמור עין, למנצח לדוד להזכיר.
Make haste, O God, to deliver me.
אלוהים להצילי.
Make haste to help me, O Lord.
אדוני לעזרתי חושה.
Let them be ashamed and confounded.
יבושו ויחפרו.
Not understanding.
Let them be ashamed and confounded that seek after my soul. Let them be turned backward and put to confusion that desire my hurt. Let them be turned back for a reward of their shame, that say, Aha, 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 aha.
האומרים האח.
Let all those that seek thee rejoice and be glad in thee. Let such as love thy salvation say continually, let God be magnified.
ויאמרו תמיד, יגדל אלוהים, אוהבי ישועתך.
But I am poor and needy. Make haste unto me, O God. Thou art my help and my deliverer. O Lord, make no tarrying.
מזמור עין, למנצח לדוד להזכיר. אלוהים להצילני, אדוני לעזרתי חושה. יבושו ויחפרו מבקשי נפשי, ייסוגו אחור ויתקלמו חפצי רעתי. ישובו על עקב בושתם, האומרים האח. יסיסו וישמחו בך כל מבקשיך, ויאמרו תמיד, יגדל אלוהים, אוהבי ישועתך. ואני עני ואביון, אלוהים חושה לי, עזרי ומפלתי אתה. אדוני אל תאחר.
Yes, don't delay right now. Yes, give thanks, brothers and sisters and brothers. Rhema word. This was brought to you by the Hebrew letter Ain. Yes, the I. So here, this Torah reading and feeding Re. see, seen, sight. Here we pick up the 47th sabbatical study for this Shabbat strong. So here during the Darash, seeking, to seek, also seeking prayer, right? Also study. It should also add to that study as well, right? So here we have the 47th sabbatical study. Naaseh, naaseh. Let us make naaseh, right? The way hadarek, weha emet, weha chayim, way, the truth, and the life. So here. One more. There's a Elohe ha Elohim, the God of gods. Elohe, the God of ha Elohim, the name, the Hashem, Hakadosh Baruch Hu, Baruch Hashem. But here, we have the 47th sabbatical study right here. Here, the second day going to the third day of the Shabbat Chan. We come together. It's already like the second, we're already really moving the eve of the third day. Day has not come, evening and morning one day. But here, this 47th sabbatical study, this week's portion, just a quick overview. We've been kind of pointing to it as well. Fine, just bring this up full screen right here. More of this can be found at the lojs.org site. The order, the search, if you want to get it, lojs.org, Torah portion. And it should come up to the site. Click the archive. Look for the archives. So right here, we have the 47th sabbatical study here. It's called and known as Re'eh. They enunciate it like that in the English. It's kind of hard for some words in English, but Re'eh, Re'eh, because of command. Re'eh, Re, contracted Re. Speak slow, Re'eh. Like I'm saying, see, like look, see, Re'eh. Saying at a lively pace, see, Re. Remember the plural for Reuben, Reu. See y'all, Reuben, right? Speaking to one person, male, Re, right? Re, Ben, right? Re, Haben, right? See a son. So here, Mamarinya, we have the Ineho that has a sense of behold, a sense of look, see, here it is, right? Ineho. So this Torah reading and feeding, Re'eh, 47 sabbatical study. Remember, we go up to 54, right? So you can see how close the season is right here. We have like this here would be the 5 more. This here we're completing, right? Then we'll have 4 more. So about 4, more before we are in the 7th month, 7th moon, and the holy season, right? The fall festival, the third of the 3 times in the year. Actually, when we come to the 7th month of the year, so the holy year fulfills. And the holy year, I say holy year because it's when we have the Mikra, right? When then in those 7 months we have appointments. And then we come to the 5 months, right? The beginning of the civil year, so forth and so on. But we're going into more of that there. But here, see this. Re. Deuteronomy 11:26 to 16:17. So this Torah reading and feeding 47th, it comprises Deuteronomy chapter 11 from verse 26 to chapter 16, verse 17. So here we have the Aliyot, right, the 7 readings, and usually we seek to, teach and also practice a Ali a day. And so here we have at least the first and second one, right, beginning off right here, and Ali a day. So we have to get it going into the third day, coming forward. But here, the first reading, as we see, we're going to touch at least on the first reading, a second, right? Chapter 11, 26 to 12:10. Second reading, Deuteronomy chapter 12, verses 11 to verse 28, coming up for the next day, new day. Third reading, Deuteronomy chapter 12, verse 29 to 13:18. 13:18, Chavarim. So the prophet's reading is what we have the how should we say it? We have the Haftarah, what's called the Haftarah, right? The Haftarah. But to keep it simple and plain, the prophet's reading. And here we have in these 7 weeks, the 7 Shabbats, the 7 weeks of comfort, speaking comfortably, right? Comfortably to our people, Nachamu Ami. It's all drawn from Yeshaya, Isaiah. So here we have heard. of the 7, right? For this Shabuah coming up for the Sabbath day. Isaiah Yeshaya chapter 54, verses 11 to 55 and 5. More on that. Brit Chadash, right? Habrit Ha Kadosha, right? Or Habesora, the new, was it the Holy Gospels, right? In the New Testament, Brit Chadash reading. We have John's Gospel, chapter 7, focus verses 37 to 52, right? So a general overview, quick overview right here. Deuteronomy chapter 12, verse 1. They have pagan or the heathen, the other people's shrines or whatever, to be destroyed. Remember, it's like, you come into a residence, right, that the landlord so graciously gave you. And the landlord said, well, do this. You can inhabit this, drive out the other tenants, and get rid of all their junk, because their junk was very offensive to me. And don't do anything like that. Otherwise, I'll kick you out like I kicked them out, is basically what Yahweh said to the Bnei Israel. Right? Be that as it may, the heathen, pagan, the other people's gods or whatever, their shrines to be destroyed. Deuteronomy chapter 12, verse 13, a prescribed place, a place that was already prescribed, right? Place of worship. This meant that for Israel, unlike in the patriarchal age, right? Where we see, Abraham, Yitzhak, and Yaakov worshiping and having various revelations in various places that were not strictly designated, at least according to the narrative, holy places beforehand, right? We see them worshiping. And up until the covenant time, right, out of Egypt, the birth of the nation covenant of the Bnei Yisrael, right? Before that, you know, anyone who is a firstborn male, right, of a family, right, could act and serve as priests in a sense of where they can offer offerings, to God or to gods, be it as it may, right? But for the Israelites or the Hebrews to Yahweh, we get that with Abraham, various places where he offered offerings, check, you know what I'm saying? And we also see that with Isaac, right? And especially we see it with Yaakov, right? Remember Jacob? Jacob took the stones and made a standing, like almost like a mini stela or obelisk, right? And he poured oil on it. And he said that, like, like the stelas, well, not more like the Ethiopian ones of Jacob, no doubt, than the Egyptian one. When you look at it, in other words, the Ethiopian one is circumcised and the Egyptian one is a bull penis, basically. But a stela basically took the stones and stacked them up to make a standing image. But then you'll notice in the constitution given to the Bnei Yisrael, the constitution given to the sons of Israel, they would not have to have any of these things, right? And especially none of these things near like the worship place, right? In fact, in Abraham's time, he had a place of worship, an altar, and then it clearly tells us there was a grove. There was a grove. He had a grove right nearby, right? And then we hear in the constitution given to Bnei Yisrael coming out of Mitzrayim. Because come out of Mitzrayim, there had to be like a reformation, so to speak, of some things, regulation, right? But that's what we got in chapter 12, 13. One prescribed place. That means that we are to worship in one place. That means anyone who's going to give an offering or, something to Yahweh says, hey, yes, I'm in the covenant, I'm an Israelite, I want to go and I want to burn, even in that time, incense. They could burn incense as regular incense, but they could not burn incense as worship. It's very interesting, right? They could eat, the kosher foods, right, and do what they had to do, to prepare it and to cook it, but they could not say, okay, this is actually a sacrifice because of the covenant, right? The terms and conditions of the covenant. So there was to be one prescribed place of worship. So this meant this was something really radical, right? Because you have to remember that even of other nations, every firstborn male or every man, of his family or house could serve as a priest, or certain men in the family could serve as a priest, right? And even other things occurred. You know what I'm saying? They might have, like this among ancient peoples, right? But for Israel in the covenant, there was to be only one place. Like the tabernacle was that one place. So when they enter into the land, there'd be one place of worship. And this also meant wherever the Aron Habarit was. What was the Aron Habarit? That was the Ark of the Covenant. Right? So also take note of that. So now this prescription of one place and one place only of worship, even though prior to it was different in the so some things that were allowed and therefore in that context permissible, right? In the patriarchal age of Abraham, Yitzhak, and Yaakov was not of the Bnei Yisrael coming out of Mitzrayim, out of ancient Egypt. Just to take note of that. Deuteronomy chapter 12, verse 29. So what Torah was doing was regulation, right? Or some things that was practiced before, right? Like blood avenger was regulated. You see what I'm saying? Was regulated. Like, yes, someone slays someone, it is on site, but it has to be done like this. And for the one who might have done something happen accidentally, right, and they are innocent, they are to flee. Don't stand around and think you're going to be your own advocate, because the ancient rights are rights, right? But Torah-wise, they were to be regulated, right? So pagan or heathen, other people's practices were forbidden. Warning against idolatry. There was no idolatry. You know what I mean? Right? And idolatry. See, sometimes we have this generalized way, and yes, we can look at it in like a new covenant sense, but we need to understand it principally. Right? In other words, you need to understand physical before you get to metaphysical. Because I kept, because the physical is the root. You know what I mean? It's like, check it out. Even when we went over the letters and we look at Ein, and we look at in the ancient days, they actually, pictographed an eye, or symbolically speaking, right? But then as they grew in grace, check. So the other people's practices, Deuteronomy 14 and 1, they call pagan. Pagan is a term that the Romans throw at anybody who's not a part of their city. Their city, the eternal city, St. Peter's Basilica, but Basilica is a kingdom. So Peter has a kingdom? Does he really? Chapter and verse. Chapter and verse. So anybody that wasn't a part of the city was the eternal city under Roman Catholicism, was considered to be paganus. In other words, if you was not a city dweller, urbanus, if you was not urbanus, then you were paganus. If you were not an urbanite, then you dwelt in the countryside and you was labeled pagan. So that's why we don't really use this term. And I know it sounds nice, but when you start to learn better, you want to do better. So the heathen practice is forbidden. Deuteronomy 14 and 3, clean and unclean food, all in this Torah portion, reading and feeding, right? Clean and unclean foods, right? Then in Deuteronomy 14:22 is regulations concerning tithes. Notice that many people in what they call the Christian church, right? And more like the anti-Christian, but anyway, that's a whole other point, right? They talk about tithe. They say, we're free from the law. We're free. Free at last. My nanny used to say, you're free to your full. You know what I mean? Free unto your full, right? So they're free. They're free of the law, right? But they go back to the law for tithes because they say, oh, look, the Yehudi disciples of Yeshua, the rabbi, right, basically pointed to this in the New Testament area. Therefore, this is permissible for us as Christians to do. But guess what they don't have? No regulations. Once you recognize what the regulations were and who it was for, then you'll recognize the scam. You know what I mean? So even the tithes that many are scamming, right? So I just want to point that out. People say, oh, yeah, it's supposed to be done, so forth and so on. But there's even a way for it to be done, the regulation. Let's check out the regulation in Deuteronomy 14:22 and see if the tithes fit, right? Then you must acquit. Deuteronomy 15 or quit. Deuteronomy 15 verse 1, right, is the laws, the direction, instructions concerning the sabbatical year. So what is the sabbatical year? Deuteronomy 15:19, the firstborn of livestock. Well, Yahweh says, firstborn of all that's born, right, is his. And here he speaks about the firstborn, firstly, of the livestock, right? If these are stocks, we need stocks and bonds. You know where the stocks and bonds came from? The ancient currency of having animal, cattle, right? Having livestock. You don't want no dead stock. You know what I'm saying? Because it wasn't, you know what I mean? Like livestock. And of course, these animals had many times to be bound. You know what I'm saying? You know what I mean? You know, tie up your cattle and when you need to, and then put your faith in Yahweh Eloheinu. You know what I'm saying? So the firstborn of livestock, right? Deuteronomy 16:1. The Passover again is reviewed, right? Review, ready for review. Passover, Pesach, Fasika review. Deuteronomy 16:9. The Feast of Weeks, Shabuot, right? The 7 weeks after first fruits that lead right to what they call harvest feast, or in a new covenant sense, Pentecost, the 50th day. That's the festival of weeks. Review. Then in Deuteronomy chapter 16, verse 13, the feast of booths review. So what is mentioned in Deuteronomy chapter 16 is the 7 feasts and festivals are summarized by the main name for the season. So we have the Passover season, for example, right? Unleavened bread Passover. And then, right, we have 50 days after that, right? 7 Shabbats plus 1 day, the first day of the Shabuah. We have the festival of weeks, right? Right? Or harvest, the first harvest. And then we come to the latter harvest in verse 13, the festival of booths that occurs in the 7th month, right? So when we talk about the 7 Shabbats of comfort, right, it's likened to the space between Passover, right, and the festival of weeks, right, or the first harvest. So we have the first harvest and the latter harvest at the end of the year where we gather in the crops. And this is the 7th month, right, coming up. The festival of booths, right, the feast of tabernacles or huts, right, as Vaughn Benjamin says in the Belial tune, where he says in the 7th month, right, on the 15th day of the month, that's when the feast, the festival of booths, right, also known as tabernacles, right, right, and can be called huts, huts, right. That's when that rises up, right, at the end of the year. And it's the end of the year because after that, until Passover comes again, we don't have any covenant appointed feast festivals. Right? There's other feasts and festivals that may be, but we don't have any covenant appointed feasts and festivals. So pay attention to the 7 months, right? The holy part of the Shana, the holy part of the year. I say holy because we have business to do, right? In the holy, right? And what's the holy, right? In the Yeshaya 54:1, the eternal covenant of shalom, and then in 55:1, an invitation to abundant life. So here we have re'eh, right? Re'eh or re. Now, various spellers spell it like this. In English, it's kind of, it all depends on how people see the letters, right? But we have re'eh, right? Re'eh. So what do we have right here? Re'eh. Re'eh, the Hebrew word see. It's a command word, see or behold in KJV. The first word in the Parsha, in this portion. This is the 47th weekly Torah portion, the sabbatical study for this Shabbat Strong, what we know as a parasha. Parasha, like a portion, parasha, right? In the annual, they say Jewish, we say Yehuda, Yehuda Ish, right? Judahite, right? Cycle of Torah reading. And the fourth in the book of Deuteronomy or Devarim. It constitutes Deuteronomy chapter 11, 26, verse 26 to 16 and 17. In blessing and curse. So this is all about blessing and curse, right? Blessing and curse. And don't let nobody curse you, right? You know what I mean? I'm not just saying they may say what they say, but I'm saying don't receive it. Right? Not in the Brit Chadasha sense, not in the way, the truth, and the life. Right? They can be, but first understand principle. Right? Principally. This is why this is so necessary here. See, sight, right? So in blessing, right, and curse, Moshe instructed the Bnei Yisrael, right, the Beta Israelites, in the Torah, the directions, instructions that they were to observe or keep, including the law, right, or the Torah, the direction instruction of a single centralized place of worship, one place and one place only. In the Brit Chadash and the New Covenant, we have that one place. You know what that one place is? Jerusalem. We have to rebuild the temple. Know ye not? You ignorant, right? That your body is a temple. If the Holy Spirit be, right? So you see, one place of worship, right? In spirit and in truth, right? So Moshe warned against following, right, other gods, or in the Hebrew we say Elohim Acharim, 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 Elohim Acharim. And Acharim mean like other ones or following. It can mean like coming behind, like when Yeshua said to Satan, "Get behind me," right? Because we are not to have any other, before him, right? And therefore before we, right? Check. So Moshe warned against following basically other people's Elohim, other people's gods, and their prophets, right? And set forth the Torot, the direction instruction of kashrut. What is kashrut? It's often called kosher, right? Kosher. But kashrut, yes, it is Torah. People say, "Oh, that's Yiddish." No, you're ignorant. It's in the Torah. It's in the scripts, right? And tithe. So we have the laws of the clean and unclean foods, kashrut, that which is kashar, right? We have the tithe, right? We have the sabbatical year. We have the Hebrew servant, right? Indentured servant. They like to say slave a lot, right? No, it's a Hebrew servant. They say like an indentured servant, right? Some say we were slaves too. No, many of y'all were indentured servants. Check, right? Firstborn animals, the livestock, firstborn of the livestock, firstborn animals, and the three pilgrim feasts, the three pilgrim festivals. So there's a theme here, Chabarim. The theme here, Chabarim, is giving to the poor, giving to the poor. The thought for this Shabua, for this seven, for this strong, you and me, I and we shall not hesitate to give, nor murmur when you do give, because you shall know who is the good repayer of the hire. Who is the good repayer of the hire? You shall not turn away from him that is in want. That is want, he want. Want basically means to lack. Him that is lacking, want. Yahweh, my shepherd, Roi, right? Lo echsar, I shall not lack, right? But those many times people are in lack. So we're not to turn away from the one, especially one of our brother, one of our people, right? Who is in lack. For if you are partakers, I skipped over some sleeker, right? Not to turn away from him that's in want, but you shall share all things with your ach, with your brother, with your wendon, with your brother. Share all things with your brother, and shall not say that they are your own, right? For if you are partakers in that which is immortal, that which is, we say, deathless, which is eternal, right? How much more in things that are mortal, like things of this life? You know what I mean? And this is where the connection here, because this actually comes from the Didache. The Didache was the early Jewish Christians or Jewish Nazarene. When I say Jewish, I'm talking Judahite. I know we people saw the ish and all that, but I don't see them go deeper than that. And there is the error, right? But the Didache is also known as the church constitution. We have a very good book. We need to bring that into play again. It's called the what's it called again? The Didascalia, the Didascalia from Didache. Let's zoom in right here. You see the word Didache. Now Didache, right? In a sense, it kind of corresponds with like teaching, right? And it basically corresponds to teaching, the church constitution. They call it the church constitution, right? Chapter 4, verses 7 to 8. So the first followers of Moshiach, right, and the early people call it church or called out assembly were Yehudi, were Judahites, and therefore were Israelites. And Judah is a tribe, a people of Yisrael. But sadly, the other tribes were scattered. You know what I'm saying? So here the commentary connection here. So what this is showing is that even the early, what's called the early church, biblically speaking, they were Judahites. So there was much of what was good, right, in Yahadu was kept, right, amongst them in the way of Ha-Notzri, right, in the way of the Nazarene, in the way of Yeshua, Robenu, Yeshua Ha-Notzri. So here, so you can hear the language of that right there, right? The Didascalia chapter 4, verses 7 to 8. So the Ethiopian or the Didascalia, all right, we'll seek to bring that up. Here, this verse right here, we'll go into in more of a commentary later, but get the verse, Deuteronomy 15:10. You shall generously give to him. This is similar when we study what's it called? The Fetah Neges. Fetah Neges. Right? People say Nagas because you're reading English, but reading the glyphs, the Ethiopic glyphs, Neges. Right? Fetah Neges. Right? It reads the same way, which shows that the early church, right, or the early ones from the biblical time to the apostolic time to the early times, right, and preserved, even in the early, you could say, Ethiopian Tawahedo Church, just to put that on the Bema in the teaching. We're not talking about what they're doing today, right? Some of what they're doing today is it's a mix. It's a mix, it's like good figs and bad. You know what I mean? But in the roots, we see where the Torah, remember the only scriptures that they had, like Yeshua, the followers, his disciples, the Talmudim, right, the apostles, had when they talk about the scripture was the scripture, right? That which later counterfeit Christianity has cut off, right, by and large, although there's some faithful still, right? Here from Deuteronomy 15:10, it says, you shall generously give to him, and your heart shall not be grieved when you give to him, the one amongst us that lacks, right? Be your brother's keeper, right? Because for this thing, for this word, for this thing, right? Yahweh, your Elohim, will bless you, will empower you to prosper. Now, this is a key thing. We talk about, oh man, back in the days, people used to such and such, and consequently, vis-a-vis, they prosper too. You see the connection? They prosper. All right, But notice the connection of this by giving to our poor brother, or by caring one for another, being our brother and our sister's keeper, right? Amongst those in the way, the truth, and the life of the King of Kings Christ, Jesus Christ, Yeshua, HaMoshiach, who the world called Jesus Christ, right? By doing this, right? Yahweh, our Elohim, right? Elohei Yisrael, right? Will bless you. What? In what? In all your work, right? And in all your undertakings. And elsewhere it reads, in the work of your hands, your handiwork. So even the work of our hands is taking good notes and taking some time in the Shabbat to study, and even write down in your notes those things that you may not have time to study. I would like to get into more of this. I want to know more what this is about. So when we gather together, one can, bring it forward. All right. So right there. So Torah commands us to give generously to the poor. All right. Deuteronomy 15:11. You shall freely open your hand to your brother, to your needy and poor in your land, right? In your land. So Robeno, our master, the master, taught frequently about giving to the poor and encouraged his followers, the Talmudim, to do so lavishly, abundantly. The Mitmanan, those who truly have faith in the way, the truth, and life, they should be distinguished as the most generous people on the earth, on the land, right? And even giving advice. I mean, you might not have the resources, but you can consider the poor. Check, right? When the Apostle Paul, Rabbi Shaul, when he received permission from the apostles to take, the gospel, the good news, right, to the nations, right, particularly mainly to the Israelites, but still, the cup, like even the crumbs, right, that fall off the table. The apostles gave him only one stipulation. What was the one stipulation? They asked him to teach, right, those among the nations to remember the poor, right? To remember the poor, right? Now they have Genesis 2 and 10 there. I think that might be a typo right there. But we'll go over that a little bit more. Time is going forward. So this right here, re'eh. Here, let's get to the first and second aliyot right here. Remember, we're picking up right here. We're picking up right here with Genesis, not Genesis, man. Slicha. with Deuteronomy chapter 11, verse 26, Deuteronomy chapter 11. So we're picking up with chapter 11. We're picking up effectively where we, at the next verse where we left off. So chapter 11, get chapter 11, y'all, right? For the first two aliyot, chapter 11, verse 20, we said 26. 26, Re'eh Anoki Notain Lifnei Kem Hayom Baraka U Kalala. The baraka, the blessing, U, or the kalala, or the curse.
Devarim, the words, the Sefer HaDevarim, called the Sefer HaDevarim and known as the Sefer Devarim. This Torah portion here for Shabbat. Shalom, Chabarim, Shabbat Shalom, Sinbet Salam, for this Shabbat Devarim, Sabbath of the words, here, beginning the fifth book of Moses, fifth book of Moshe, the book that is called and known as Deuteronomy, the Sefer Devarim, the Sefer, the Devarim, the words, the Sefer HaDevarim, called the Sefer HaDevarim and known as the Sefer Devarim. This Torah portion here for Shabbat Devarim, Sabbath of the words, here, beginning the fifth book of Moses, the final book of HaTorah, the directions, the instructions, and here for this Shabbat Devarim, the 44th Rastafari sabbatical study, and here, for this Shabbat strong, Shema Yisrael, give ear, right here. Beshem Ha'ab, Wa'havein, Wa'ruach Kadosh, Yahweh Echad, in the name of the Father, and of the Son, and the Holy Spirit, He who be, who He be, the One. Here, picking up.
My bad. I still had on the board right here the previous one right there. Right, yes, 44 is the Barim, beginning this book, but here.
Shabbat Shalom, Senbet Salam, yes, I, for this Shabbat. Shabbat Shalom, Senbet Salam, yes, I, for this Shabbat.
Come be a part of
This Torah portion reading and feeding right here, this Rastafari sabbatical strong, for the Rishon Aliyah, for the first Aliyah of offering, first reading here, for this Shabbat Re'eh. Sabbath, behold, Sabbath, see, sing, sight, Re'eh, Shabbat, Re. Here. First, Aliyah, the Rishon, Aliyah. Picking up here with the fifth book of Moses, the Hebrew book called Deuteronomy. Here, the Sefer Devarim. Here, picking up at chapter 11, verse 26. For the Rishon, Aliyah, for the first reading, the first offering offering for this Shabbat. Shabbat Re'eh. Beshem Ha'ab Wa'habein Wa'ruach Kadosh Yahweh Echad. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and the Holy Spirit, He who be, who He be, the One. Re'eh Anoki Noten Lifnei Kem Hayom Baraka Ukalala. Behold, Re'eh, I set before you, I've given before your faces, Re'eh, Anoki Notein Lifnei Kem Hayom, this day, Hayom Baraka Ukalala, a blessing and a curse. Eta habraka asher tisham'u eta mitzvoti Yahweh Elohim. A blessing, baraka, if ye obey, if ye hear, if ye heed, if ye obey the commandments, the imperatives of Yahweh, of Jehovah, Yahweh Elohim. Eta habraka asher tisham'u illa mitzvoti Yahweh Elohim. Asher anokia mitzvah etikem hayom, which I command you this day, and a curse, and a cuss, if y'all will not obey the imperatives of Yahweh, of Jehovah, y'all Elohim, with Hakalalaim Aloe Tishamu Illa Mitzvotai Yahweh Elohim. But turn aside out of the way which I command you this day to go after other Elohim, which y'all ye have not known. With Sartem Amina Hadareka Asher Anokia Mitzaweh Hetekem Hayoma Laleketa Achrei Elohim Acharim Asher Lo Yidaitem. And it shall come to pass when Yahweh Eloheka Jehovah the I Elohim have brought thee into the land, whither, where thou goest to possess it, to possess her, that thou shalt put the baraka upon Mount Gerizim and the curse upon Mount Ebal. Are they not on the other side, Yarden, Jordan, by the way where the sun goeth down, in the land of the Canaanites, which dwell in the campaign over against Gilgal, beside the plains of Moreh? For y'all, ye shall pass over Yarden, Jordan, to go in to possess the land which Yahweh Elohim, Jehovah y'all Elohim giveth you. And ye, y'all, shall possess it, shall possess her, and dwell therein. And ye, y'all, shall observe to do all the statutes and judgments which I set before you this day. And hear, Shema give ear. Fifth book of Moses, Hebrew book called Deuteronomy chapter 12. Conditions of baraka, conditions of blessing in the land. These are the statutes and judgments which ye, y'all, shall observe to do in the land, which Yahweh, Jehovah, the Elohim of thy fathers, of thy patriarchs, giveth thee to possess her. All the days that y'all live upon the earth, upon the earthly plane, ye, y'all, shall utterly destroy all the places wherein the goyim, the nations, the nationalities, which ye, y'all, shall possess, serve their Elohim, upon the high mountains and upon the hills and under every green tree. And ye, y'all, shall overthrow their altars and break their pillars and burn their groves with fire. And ye, y'all, shall hew down the graven images of their Elohim and destroy the names, Shemot, the names of them out of that place. Y'all, ye shall not do so to Yahweh Elohim. You should not do to Jehovah, y'all Elohim, but to the place, the Makom, which Yahweh Elohim, Jehovah, y'all Elohim, shall choose out of all your tribes to put Shemo, his name, to put the Hashem, there, even to his habitation shall ye, y'all, seek, and thither and there thou shalt come. And thither and there ye, y'all, shall bring your burnt offerings and your sacrifices and your tithes and your heave offerings of your hand and your vows and your free will offerings and the firstlings of your herds and of your flocks. And there ye, y'all, shall eat lifnei Yahweh Elohim, before Jehovah, y'all Elohim, and ye, y'all, shall rejoice in all that ye, y'all, put your hand, your yad to. Ye, y'all, and your households, wherein Yahweh Elohim, Jehovah, thy Elohim, hath blessed thee. Ye, y'all, shall not do after all the things that we, I and I, do here this day, every man whatsoever is right in his own eyes. For y'all, ye are not as yet come to the rest, and to the inheritance which Yahweh Elohim, Jehovah, y'all Elohim, giveth you. But when ye, y'all, go over Yarden, go over Jordan, and dwell in the land which Yahweh Elohim, Jehovah, y'all Elohim, giveth you to inherit, and when he giveth you rest from all your enemies round about, so that ye, y'all, dwell in safety, 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 safety. And here, Shema Israel. Hear, O Israel, hear for the Sheni Aliyah, the second Aliyah for Shabbat Re'eh, Sabbath, behold. Senbet Ineho. Yes, here, Shema Israel. Give here, we pick up with the fifth book of Moses, the Hebrew book called Deuteronomy, at Deuteronomy chapter 12, here picking up with verse 11, Deuteronomy 12:11 for the Sheni, for the second reading, the second offering up for this Shabbat Re'eh. W'haya hamakom asher yibchari Yahweh Eloheikem bo le shaken shemo shama tabiu et kol asher anoki mitzaweh etkem olotekem v'zibacheikem ma'isarotekem ua terumata yedkem Wikola mi bahara nidarekem asher tidru layawa. Here, the Sheni. Then there shall be a place which Yahweh Eloheikem, Jehovah Yahweh Elohim, shall choose to cause his name to dwell there. W'haya hamakom asher yibchari Yahweh Eloheikem. Bo lit shaken shemo shama. Thither there shall ye y'all bring all that I command you. Tabi'u et kol asher anokia mitzaweh hetkem. Your burnt offerings, olotekem, and your sacrifices, w'zibacheikem, your tithes, ma'isarotekem, and the heave offering of your hands, u'terumata yedkem, and all your choice vows which ye y'all vow to Jehovah. W'kol mi bahar nidrekem asher tidru layawa, and ye y'all shall rejoice lifnei Yahweh Eloheikem, before Jehovah y'all Elohim, ye y'all and your sons and your daughters and your men servants and your maid servants and ha-lewim and the Levite that is within your gates, for as much as he hath no part nor inheritance with you. Take heed to thyself that thou offer not thy burnt offerings in every place that thou seest, but in the place ha-makom which Jehovah shall choose in one of thy tribes. There thou shalt offer thy burnt offerings, and there thou shalt do all that I command thee. Notwithstanding, thou mayest kill and eat flesh in all thy gates. Whatsoever thy soul lusteth after, according to the baraka of Yahweh Eloheka, Jehovah the I Elohim, which he hath given thee. The unclean and the clean may eat thereof, as of the roebuck and as of the hart. Only ye y'all shall not eat hadam, the blood. Ye y'all shall pour it upon the earth as water. Thou mayest not eat within thy gates the tithe of thy corn, or of thy wine, or of thy oil, or the firstlings of thy herds, or of thy flock, nor any of the vows which thou vowest, nor thy free will offerings, or terumat, the gift, the heave offering of thine hand. But thou must eat them lifnei Yahweh Eloheka, before Jehovah the I Elohim, in hamakom, in the place, the spot which Yahweh Eloheka, Jehovah the I Elohim, shall choose. Thou and thy son and thy daughter and thy manservant and thy maidservant and ha-lewi and the Levite that is within thy gates. And thou shalt rejoice lifnei Yahweh Eloheka, before Jehovah the I Elohim, in all that thou puttest thine hands to. take heed to thyself that thou forsake not Halawi, the Levite, as long as thou livest upon the earth, the earthly plane. When Yahweh Eloheka, Jehovah the I Elohim, shall enlarge thy border, as he hath promised thee, and thou shalt say, I will eat flesh, because thy soul longeth to eat flesh. Thou mayest eat flesh, whatsoever thy soul lusteth after. If the place, Hamakom, the spot which Yahweh Eloheka, Jehovah the I Elohim, hath chosen to put Shemo, his name there, be too far from thee, then thou shalt kill of thy herd and of thy flock, which Yahweh Jehovah hath given thee, as I have commanded thee, and thou shalt eat in thy gates whatsoever thy soul, thy psyche lusteth after, longest after. Even as the roebuck and the hart is eaten, so thou shalt eat them. The unclean and the clean shall eat of them alike. Only be sure that thou eat not Hadam, the blood, for Hadam, the blood, is the life, and thou mayest not eat the life with the flesh. Thou shalt not eat it. Thou shalt pour it upon the earth as water. Thou shalt not eat it, that it may go well with thee, and with thy children, thy sons after thee, when thou shalt do that which is right in the sight of Yahweh, of Jehovah. Only thy holy isla set apart things which thou hast, and thy vows thou shalt take, and go to Hamakom, the place which Yahweh Jehovah shall choose. And thou shalt offer thy burnt offerings, the flesh and the blood, upon the altar, the Mizbeach of Yahweh Eloheka, Jehovah the I Elohim, and Hadam, the blood of thy sacrifices, shall be poured out upon HaMizbeach, the altar of Yahweh Eloheka, Jehovah the I Elohim, and thou shalt eat the flesh. Observe and hear all these words, Debarim, which I command thee, that it may go well with thee, and with thy children, thy sons, after thee, forever, forever, when thou doest that which is good and right in the sight of Yahweh Eloheka, Jehovah the I Elohim. Elohim, 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 Elohim.
Shit. Federation.
Come be a part of.
All right, and you're Jake. You want to Jew Society.
Where Hebrew feels like home.
Psalm 48.
Rastafari, Africa is a must. So nobody force now cause. You have to jump on this your bus. Zion born, right?
Psalm 48.
מזמור מ"ח, שיר מזמור לבני קורח.
Great is the Lord, and greatly to be praised in the city of our God, in the mountain of his holiness. Beautiful for situation, the joy of the whole earth, is Mount Zion on the sides of the north, the city of the great king. God is known in her palaces for a refuge, for lo, the kings were assembled. They passed by together, they saw it, and so they marveled. They were troubled and hasted away. Fear took hold upon them there, and pain as of a woman in travail. Thou breakest the ships of Tarshish with an east wind. As we have heard, so have we seen in the city of the Lord of hosts, in the city of our God. God will establish it forever. Selah. We have thought of thy loving kindness, O God, in the midst of thy temple. According to thy name, O God, so is thy praise unto the ends of the earth. Thy right hand is full of righteousness. Let Mount Zion rejoice. Let the daughters of Judah be glad because of thy judgments. Walk about Zion, and go round about her. Tell the towers thereof. Mark ye well her bulwarks. Consider her palaces, that ye may tell it to the generation following. For this God is our God forever and ever. He will be our guide forever, forever. forever, 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 forever.
מזמור מ"ח, שיר מזמור לבני קורח. גדול אדוני ומהולל מאוד, בעיר אלוהינו הר קודשו. יפה נוף משוש כל הארץ, הר ציון ירכתי צפון, קריית מלך רב. אלוהים בארמנותיה נודע למשגב, כי הנה המלכים נועדו, עברו יחדיו. המה ראו כן תמהו, נבהלו נחפזו. רעדה אחזתם שם, חיל כיולדה. ברוח קדים תשבר אוניות תרשיש. כאשר שמענו כן ראינו, בעיר אדוני צבאות, בעיר אלוהינו. אלוהים יכונניה עד עולם סלע. דימינו אלוהים חסדך בקרב היכליך. כשמך אלוהים, כן תהילתך על קצווי ארץ, צדק מלאה ימינך. ישמח הר ציון, תגלנה בנות יהודה למען משפטיך. סובו ציון והקיפוה, ספרו מגדליה. שיטו לבכם לחילה, פסגו ארמנותיה. למען תספרו לדור אחרון, כי זה אלוהים אלוהינו עולם ועד, הוא ינהגנו על מות.
Discipleship, adoration, adoration.
Come be a part of. Come be a part of.
Line of Jew Society.
Where Hebrew feels like home.
Yes, 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 yes. Here. Between the evenings, right here. Yes, yes, yes. Good ride. Gonna seal up soon. Give thanks, brothers and sisters. Interesting. Like to even just touch on just briefly. Depends on, we're gonna share just briefly a little bit more. But here, between the evenings, Psalm 82. Let's just bring that forward. You know what I'm saying?
My dreadlocks, girl. Can't you see I'm in love with you?
Psalm 82.
מזמור פ"ב, מזמור לאסף.
God standeth in the congregation of the mighty, the mighty, the mighty, the mighty, the mighty, the mighty.
אלוהים ניצב בעדת אל.
He judgeth among the gods, the gods, the gods, the gods, the gods, the gods.
בקרב אלוהים ישפוט.
How long will ye judge unjustly and accept the persons of the wicked? Selah. Defend the poor and fatherless. Do justice to the afflicted and needy. Deliver the poor and needy. Rid them out of the hand of the wicked. They know not, neither will they understand. They walk on in darkness. All the foundations of the earth are out of course. I have said, ye are gods, and all of you are children of the Most High. But ye shall die like men, and fall like one of the princes. Arise, O God, judge the earth, for thou shalt inherit all nations, inherit all nations, inherit all nations.
Discipleship.
Come be a part of. Come be a part of.
Line of Jew Society.
Where Hebrew feels like home.
מזמור פ"ב, מזמור לאסף. אלוהים ניצב בעדת אל, בקרב אלוהים ישפוט. עד מתי תשפטו עוול, ופני רשעים תישאו סלע? שפטו דל ויתום, עני ורש הצדיקו. פלטו דל ואביון, מיד רשעים הצילו. לא ידעו ולא יבינו, בחשיכה יתהלכו, ימותו כל מוסדי ארץ. אני אמרתי אלוהים אתם, ובני עליון כולכם. אכן כאדם תמותון, וכאחד השרים תפולו. קומה אלוהים, שפטה הארץ, כי אתה תנחל בכל הגויים.
מזמור עין, למנצח, לדאווי, להזכיר, אלוהים להצלני, יהוה לעזרתי חושה, יבושוע ויחפרוע מבקשי נפשי, יסגוע אחורה ויקלמוע חפצי רעתי, ישובו על עקב בשיטה, האומרים האח האח, יסיסוע וישמחו בך כל מבקשך, ויאמרו תמיד יגדל אלוהים, אוהבי ישועתך, ואני עוני ואביון, אלוהים חושה לי, עזריה ומפלטי אתה, יהוה על תאחר.
Psalm 70.
מזמור עין, למנצח לדוד להזכיר.
Make haste, O God, to deliver me.
אלוהים להצילי.
Make haste to help me, O Lord. Me, O Lord. Me, O Lord.
אדוני לעזרתי חושה.
Let them be ashamed and confounded.
יבושו ויחפרו.
Let them be ashamed and confounded that seek after my soul. Let them be turned backward and put to confusion that desire my hurt. Let them be turned back for a reward of their shame that say, Aha, 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 aha.
האומרים
Let all those that seek thee rejoice and be glad in thee. And let such as love thy salvation say continually, let God be magnified, be magnified, be magnified.
ויאמרו תמיד יגדל אלוהים, אוהבי ישועתך.
But I am poor and needy. Make haste unto me, O God. Thou art my help and my deliverer. O Lord, make no tarrying.
Here and share, we didn't share forward in the audio right there. Just was sticking to the basic, the basic notes. The he'ach is, in one sense of interpretation, though most other translators don't bring it out, but I just share this with the Chabarim right here. It's almost like saying the brother. When we look at the Hebrew Aleph, Chet, two Hebrew letters, Aleph and Chet. In one form, it's like, alas, or whoa, ach. We know that achi, my brother, ach, shali, brother, brother for me, as we have the term for sister, achot, right? So ach, in one sense, can also be interpreted as brother. When we look at the Hebrew letters, they're the same Hebrew letters, so the context is important, but even with the context being important, there's an underlying something there. They say like, almost like pretending to be like brotherly in a sense, but really wishing woe. Another term from the H254 of the Aleph, the Het, is a fire pot. I didn't find that interesting. A fire pot or a brazier. So it's like saying, whoa, fire, like fire upon the upon the brother, or a hearth as well. So we have also another word, the Aleph Chet, sometimes pronounced as oach, which is a howling animal, they howl, a jackal, a hyena, but literally a howler. So it's kind of interesting right there, that as well as when it says, Jah be magnified. I really should have put that in that audio there, but I share that right here, that in the Hebrew, Yigdal, Yahweh, within Psalm 70, in the psalm that it was derived from, Psalm XL, Psalm 40, we have Yigdal, we have Yigdal Elohim, actually in Psalm 19, Yigdal Yahweh, Yigdal, Gadol, mean to big up. So as we would say, big up Elohim, big up the true good, the true God. All those that seek I and I good, big up Jah, even Jehovah. Just to share that right there as well. Just some build on some interesting similarity, even in the Rhema word, even in the Rhema, the new and the living way of the King of Kings Christ. So here, a midrash. Look at midrash for some of the ancient teachings of the ancient sages, reasoning on these psalms, sharing some of their highlights right here. It's a short clip. Stay tuned. Also, some of the first words for this Torah portion, the 48th, Shofatim. Judges, yes, with the judgment theme right here. And this is 1 to 22 again. Come on.
Shit.
Midrash, yes, Rastafari. Here, the Midrash. Psalm 70.
Yes. This is short midrash. It's an outro midrash. Short psalm here, and it's short but very important midrash. So that part there, I was zooming in on verse 4. Only 5 verses here. Verse 4. See, somebody picked up on this meme. Like, okay, we go back to that. I'll bring that out another time. But here, where it says, say continually, may all those that seek thee rejoice and be glad in thee, in the eye. And may such as love thy Yeshua Tekah, the eye Yeshua, salvation, victory, say continually, may Elohim be magnified. So that's the part I was seeking to bring out right here. Let's go over here where it says Elohim Ohabe Yeshuataka. It says with Yomru, right? And may they say Tamid, with Yomru Tamid. May they say Tamid, like all the time, Tamid, continually, right? Yigadal Elohim, right? Yigadal. You see, to grow, to become important, to be big up. Right? It's like to be big. Like you grow up, you become big. Gadol. Right? So this is truly quintessentially the big up. Right? Big up to the true level. Right? Big up. Right? To make large. Right? To make large. Yeah? So big up. But here, look a bit on the midrash right here.
Come be a part of.
LOJ, Atlanta Jew Society.
Where Hebrew feels like home.
All right, so let's look at this or hear this and get to know this song. Today's daily song, Mizmor Mizmor. All right, so let's look at this or hear this and get to know this song. Today's daily song, Mizmor Ayin. Psalm 70. Psalm LXX from the Midrash, from the ancient study of today's daily psalm. For the leader, Psalm of Dawid, to bring to remembrance. Make haste, O Elohim, to deliver, to deliver I. Make haste to help I. O Yahweh, O Jehovah. First and second verse, Hebraically. La menatziyach le Dawid, le hazkir, Elohim le hatzelein, Yahweh le ezrati chusha. The word remembrance, le hazkir, le hazkir. The word remembrance, memorial, remembrance, is to be read in the light of the verse that we have in Zechariah chapter 10, verse 9. And I will sow them among the peoples, and they shall remember me. They shall remember I in far countries, and they shall live with their children and return. From Zechariah chapter 10, verse 9. And in reward for their remembering me, remembering I shall have them dwell with me, with I. So too, Jeremiah said in Jeremiah 51 and 50, Go ye, go y'all, stand not still. Remember Yahweh, Jehovah, from afar. Remember the Lord from afar. Why did HaKadosh, the Holy One, the Isla One, Baruch Hu, blessed be He, say, remember me? Why does the Holy One, blessed be He, say, remember I, remember me, time and time again? Because whenever you, the I, remember I, my heart yearns for you. As is said even in Jeremiah 31 and 19, Ephraim, a darling son to me, a darling son to I. For whenever my word is with him, I do earnestly remember him still. Therefore my heart yearneth for him. This from Jeremiah 31 and 19. Also, in the verse in 1 Chronicles 16 and 4, which reads, And he appointed certain of Halloween, the Levites, the Lewawian, to minister before the ark of Yahweh, of Jehovah, to bring to remembrance, lehazkir, to bring to remembrance and to thank. Why were Halloween, the Levites, told to lehazkir, to bring to remembrance? Because it is said, remember his marvelous works that he hath done. Remember his marvelous works in the 12th verse of 1 Chronicles 16 and 12. That is to say, remember his marvelous works that he does for you, for the I and I always. Did he not do them for the I, for you? Didn't he do it for you? And did he not redeem Yisrael only that they might bring his marvelous works to remembrance? Lehazkir. Hence here, David said, since this is so, I shall bring Ha'el, the true good, the true God, lehazkir, to remembrance, and he will deliver, I live I, as is said, La menatzeyach, le Dawid, lehazkir, Elohim lehatzeleini, Yahweh le'ezrati chusha. For the leader, the chief musician, the overcomer of David, a psalm of Dawid, to bring to remembrance, La menatzeyach, le Dawid lehazkir. Make haste, O Elohim, to deliver I, O Elohim, to deliver I. Make haste to help I, O Jehovah. Elohim lehatzeleini, Elohim lehatzeleini, Yahweh le'ezrati chusha. To whom may David be likened? To the shepherd, Haroeh, in the story of the king, Hamelech, who had a flock of sheep. When Hamelech, the king, the Melech, the Negus, became vexed with them, he turned out the flock, tore down the shed, and let the shepherd go. After a time, Hamelech, the king, the Negus, even Negus Neges, gathered the sheep and rebuilt the shed. But he did not bring Haroeh, the shepherd, lehazkir, to remembrance. The shepherd, Haroeh, said, behold, the sheep are gathered, the shed is built, and I am not brought lehazkir. Just so, in the previous psalm to today's daily psalm, Psalm 69, David said, Elohim will save Zion and build the cities of Yehuda and build the cities of Judah. In Psalm 69, Hebraically, verse 36. This is as if to say, behold, the shed is built, and also they shall abide there and have it in possession. The seed also of his servants shall inherit it, and they that love his name shall dwell therein. Have this in Psalm 69, verses 36 to 37. This is as if to say, behold, the sheep are gathered. And in this Mizmor, David, Ha-Ro'eh, the shepherd, asked, and shall I not be brought lehazkir, to remembrance? Hence here, in this Mizmor, this psalm, le David, lehazkir, of David, to bring to remembrance. Woe to the ratchet, the Rasha, and the Rishaim, woe to the ratchet, the wicked, who in the Olam Haba, the world to come, will die. They will die out of envy of what they seen, and out of anger. For, as it is said in Eob and Job 5 and 2, for anger killeth the foolish man, and envy slayeth the silly one. Woe to the wicked, to the ratchet, who in the Olam Haba will die out of envy of what they seen, and out of anger. As Eob, Job 5 and 2 says, for anger killeth the foolish man, and envy slayeth the silly one. They will waste away on account of their envy and anger, as it is said even in today's daily psalm. Yevoshu we yakhpru mibakshe nafshi yisgu achor we yikalmu khafetseya raati yashubu al aikeb bashtam hamri mehach. Make them be ashamed. Make them be ashamed and confounded that seek after my soul, my psyche, that seek after her. Yevoshu, where yachperu mebakshe nafshi. Make them be turned backward. Yisuku achor, and put to confusion. Where yikalmu, that delight in my heart, Chefetzei ra'ati. But I am poor and needy, O Elohim. Make haste to I. Wa'ani alni we'ebyon Elohim chushali. But I, wa'ani, am poor only, we'ebyon, and needy. Elohim, make haste to me, to I. Chushali, hurry to me, hurry to I. Chushali. In a previous psalm, even the Mizmor Maim, the 40th psalm, Psalm 40 verse 18, David said, but I am poor and needy. May Adonai think of me, think of I. Wa'ani onni we'ebyon Adonai yachshab li. Think of me, Adonai yachshab li. Adonai, think of I. What David was saying, however, in the two verses to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, to the Holy One, blessed be He, was Ribon Shel Olamim, Master of the universe. Think of I in my poverty and in my need, and thou, the I, wilt then make haste to deliver me, for thou, the I, art my help and deliverer. For the I, Ezri u'mefalti ata, for the I art my help and my deliverer. What is meant by the words? Yahweh, tarry not. Yahweh, alati achar, tarry not. Yahweh, alati achar. What is meant by those words? We have it in today's daily Psalm, Psalm 70, verse 6, and in Psalm 40, verse 18, Hebraically. These words, they mean that it is for thee, for the I, ata, and none other, for the I, male to deliver I, whether today or tomorrow. Hence, it reads, thou art my help and my deliverer, Yahweh, Jehovah, tarry not, azari u mifalti, ata, Yahweh, alati achar. Isaiah, Isaiah said, the prophet said, in Isaiah 50 and 10, who is among you that feareth, that reverenceth Adonai, that obeyeth the voice of his servant, that walketh in darkness and hath no light? Let him make him trust in the name of Yahweh, the name of Jehovah, and stay upon Elohayo, upon his Elohim, his true good, his true God. This is as if Ha'el, the true good, the true God, as if Elohim said, who among you was in trouble and called upon me, and called upon I, that I did not answer? Who was in darkness, that I did not give light to? Who? So Nebuchadnezzar, he said in Daniel 3 and 18, blessed be the Elohim, the true good, the true God of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, who hath sent Malako, his angel, and delivered his servants that trusted in him. And Darius said, also in Daniel chapter 6, verse 24, Darius said, Daniel was taken up out of the den, and no manner of hurt was found upon him, because he trusteth in Elohayo, in his Elohim, his true good, his true God. And scripture says in Isaiah 26 and 4, trust y'all in Yahweh and Jehovah forever, forever. For Yahweh Jehovah is Elohim, the true good, the true God, and everlasting rock. Hence David said, surely this is the divine promise. Surely this is the divine promise. I, too, will trust in thee, in the I, Ata. Do not put I to shame, 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 to shame.
And here on outro, Midrash, look apart the Midrash there, study here, 3 and 1, the English, the Hebrew, and the Royal Amharic, here. Oh.
Psalm 70. Make haste, O God, to deliver me. Make haste to help me, O Lord. Let them be ashamed and confounded that seek after my soul. Let them be turned backward and put to confusion that desire my hurt. Let them be turned back for a reward of their shame, that say, Aha, aha. Let all those that seek thee rejoice and be glad in thee. And let such as love thy salvation say continually, Let God be magnified. But I am poor and needy. Make haste unto me, O God. Thou art my help and my deliverer. O Lord, make no tarrying.
מזמור עין למנצח לדוד להזכיר. אלוהים להצילני, אדוני לעזרתי חושה. יבושו ויחפרו מבקשי נפשי, ייסוגו אחור ויקלמו חפצי רעתי. ישובו על עקב בושתם, האומרים האח, יסיסו וישמחו בך כל מבקשיך, ויאמרו תמיד, יגדל אלוהים אוהבי ישועתך. ואני עני ואביון, אלוהים חושה לי, עזרי ומפלטי אתה, אדוני אל תאחר.
መዝሙር 69 በቅንፍ 7 ለመዘምራን አለቃ ለመታሰቢያ የዳዊት መዝሙር። አቤቱ እኔን ለማዳን ተመልከት፣ አቤቱ እኔን ለመርዳት ፍጠን። ነፍሴን የሚሿት ይፈሩ ይጎስቁሉም፣ ክፉንም የሚመክሩብኝ ወደ ኋላቸው ይመለሱ ይፈሩም። እንኳን የሚሉኝ አፍረው ወዲያ ወደ ኋላቸው ይመለሱ። የሚሹ ሁሉ ባንተ ሐሴት ያድርጉ ደስም ይበላቸው። ማዳንህን የሚወዱ ሁል ጊዜ እግዚአብሔር ታላቅ ነው ይበሉ። እኔ ችግረኛና ምስኪን ነኝ፣ አቤቱ እርዳኝ። ረዳቴ ታዳጌም አንተ ነህ። አቤቱ አትዘግይ 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 አትዘግይ።
Ship separation. Separation.
Come be a part of. Come be a part of.
Jake, Lana Juice Society.
Where Hebrew feels like home.
Yes. This one little word here on the outro right here. Psalm 70, a cry, theme a cry, a call, a shout out for help. A cry, a shout, not a boo-hoo-hoo, but a cry like a shout out for help. So right here, just to this had come on earlier and was in the like pointed out in the slides. But here, this slide here, you probably seen this, but zooming in, I was reading the bottom here, and this is like all it's kind of jacked up. It's not really proper, right here. Like it's okay. Here in the verse, it reads right here. It says Elohim le hatzileni, not le hatzilanu. Well, his hatzilanu is like to say like to deliver, in that sense, to deliver, or literally natsal means to snatch. So this was just kind of zooming in right here, and when I saw the top part, I was like, okay, somebody had the sense of snatch. But the word is actually usually like the translator is deliver, in the translation. It's like when it says those who seek my hurt. That was a good part. We could have brought that out. Those who seek my hurt in Psalm 70, Perek Ayin, the 70th Psalm. Those who seek my hurt is actually in the Hebrew is ra'ati. Those who seek ra'ati, then dati, they seek my, they seek ra'ati, they want ra'ati. Right? Ratatatati. But no, the word right here is ra'ati in the Hebrew. So let's just look at this right here. It's the second verse, right? The second verse, right? The word my hurt, you see it right there? I have the words there on the blue letter so we can bring out the key words. Right, those who seek my hurt. Here in the Ivrit it says, Yisogu achor v'yikalmu chafesei ra'ati, chafesei ra'ati. Chafesei, those who chafat, they chafat, right? Chafetzei, the seekers of chafetzei, those who seek, those who desire. They like take pleasure. Right, like sometimes, some weirdos, and people have psychological, mental, or maybe demonic possession situation. They take pleasure, like in hurt. But check out this word, right? Okay, that's chafetzei from chafetz, to be pleased with. Often translated as delight. The word chafetz, chafetz, like chafetz al-Assad, chafetz al-Assad, yeah, chafetz, right? To delight in, to desire, to favor, to please, the sense of have pleasure, whosoever would, willing, wish, but the sense of desiring, ra'ati. So here we have ra and ra'a, ra and ra'a, two forms of the base word ra and ra'a, ra and ra'ah. Right? So here in the verse we have ra'ati, but look what ra'ati is. Ra'ati is bad. So you see that that's the first verse. That's the part, right, that we're zooming in here. But then I just thought about this with this Torah reading. This psalm is chapter 70. Perek Ain is Mizmor Ain. It's the 70th psalm. As we touched on the earlier part, the Hebrew letter Ain 70. This Torah reading and feeding. Even with the Ikeb, we went into the Ikeb connection from the previous 46 sabbatical study. And this is like kind of getting into the manuscript etymology, but not just linking just similar words or same word, but bringing out the sense of it, like both zooming in and seeing the context. So here, when it says those that seek my hurt, this tells us something that ra'ati, right? Ra'at, right? Ra'ati is to say like my ra'ah. They seek my bad. They seek my evil. They seek my unhappiness, my pain, right? That which is bad, that which is sad, right? They seek that which in disposition is vicious, deeds, actions, ra'ati, brought out in more of a sense also, right? From the intent, right, to that which becomes the thing, distress. So think about this, like, that's why Robenu says to us, let not your heart be troubled, right? He gives us the tools, right? To spiritually protect ourselves, our psyche, right? And even the Psalms here brings out that sense. So the translator says, those who seek my hurt, right? And that's a good translation. But as we start to look within, you know what I mean? And, do a deep dive, so to speak, we find that, wow, it's really that those who seek my evil. Think about it, like it has a twofold sense. Those who seek evil things, like to me, right? But then also it has a sense of those who seek, like, like nobody's perfect, so I gotta find some evil in you. You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? Know what I mean? Right? Yeah, it's in that kind of twofold sense. Remember, we're talking about the Hebrew, the principle of twofold truth. Yeah. So calamity, right? They seek my evil, but they want something bad to happen to me, some adversity, right? Adversary or an adversity, right? Something wrong, right? So understand the force of the prayer. Let them be ashamed. Let them be confounded. You know what I mean? Let them be ashamed. You know what I mean? Let them be chafir, ashamed, abashed, chafir, right? And notice this word, it's linked. I think the word kepra in ancient Egypt, from that sense, it was also Afro-Shemitic language, is linked to this word here. I just want to say that, on the record right here. So the kepra, the kepra, all that, and this word here, right, that we have for shame is chafir, 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 to be ashamed, to be abashed, right, to be embarrassed. Ones want to escape the embarrassment, right? But when we get to the Hebrew roots is chafar. So remember that was chafir, right? Coming from chafar, this means to dig. So we have to understand even the vocalization of the seven primary sounds, not the letter of the law, right, but the spirit. So here, that was chafir, right, to be like embarrassed, to be confounded, ashamed in that sense. You know what I'm saying? And the root sense is chafar. When people say, you want to bury your head in the sand, right? Yeah. They say bottoms up, right? No diddy, no pun intended. But yeah, but to hide like an ostrich, when the ostrich puts its head in the sand and the other part is up. So when we get to the root word chafar, so we can see, like, in one sense, chafir, bringing out the sense of, the attitudinal kind of state, somebody being ashamed and embarrassed, you know what I mean? And when somebody's ashamed and embarrassed, right, getting to the Hebrew root, it links to chafar, right? So some say there's no chafir because there's no E. there's only an E because you don't get the spirit, so you can't say chafir, right? It's only E because you're stuck on English. You know what I'm saying? But notice the sense. If they're both chafar, then it loses all. How do we translate this? To dig, to search for, let them be dug and searched for, it don't make no sense, right? That's why it's chafir and not chafar, right? So the root sense is to dig, to search for, right? Through the sense of avoiding detection, right? To delve, to pry. It can mean to explore in that sense, right? But it comes from the sense of digging. You know, that's why I said that the chafar and the chafar, like the kepra, right sense, because the dung beetle was always digging in the and the Mitzri, they took that for great significance in their gods or their understanding of the God, right? So through the idea of detection, right? So the verb right here, to blush, right? But now the chafir is to be disappointed. So we say, let them be disappointed. Disappointed at what? Right? If somebody's seeking your hurt and evil for you, right? Don't you want them to be disappointed? You want them to be happy? You want them to rejoice. In other words, you want it to be accomplished. No, 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 no. Not that. Never that. No. Let them be ashamed. Let them be disappointed because they wanted something evil, something bad, it didn't happen. Ha ha. Yeah. Give a shout out to Yah for that. Right? Yeah, let them be confounded. That's the sense of us is confounded. I mean, we don't really speak like that today. Well, yeah, man, I confound. I mean, we do in a sense, but notice the force of it, right? Disappointed, right? Embarrassed. Let them be embarrassed. Like, wow, I really tried to harm the righteous. Like shame, right? That seek after, that do what? That bakash, right? That seek after, right? That seek after my soul. Remember the soul in Hebrew, the nefesh, is the aspect of our being that's known as the psyche, right? What's called the psyche, right? And, nowadays the psychological state, that mind. That's why Yeshua said, "Let not your heart," to say your mind state, "be troubled. Make them be turned backward. Make them to be turned backward." Right? And put to confusion, right? Put to confusion kalam, yikalmu, from kalam, yikalmu. Let them be insulted, right? Humiliated. How dare you? You know what I mean? How dare you? Because it's hope that from that, dishonoring, that wounding, right? That wounding, let them be wounded, but it's more in the figurative sense of somebody insulted in that sense is wounded, but on a different kind of level. But in the figure of speech, the second of the two truths is to be taunted. How could you do that? How could you, like do that against the right? Why did you seek one to one hurt? You know what I mean? Because it's to bring one to repentance, right? To change his mind. You know what I mean? Before the judgment time. So ra'ati. So I want to bring out the ra'a, right? Notice the word is bad and evil, but they didn't translate here as that desire, my bad, my evil, because there was a chance that some might misunderstand it and not really get the sense that the bad and evil that they seek ends up in one's hurt. You see what I'm saying? Ends up in one being hurt, right there. But essentially, the hurt. So think about it for a moment. Essentially, the hurt is bad, is evil because ra'ati, the word right here, right? We can get in it, right? But let's go back to our first point right here. That's why we had this particular meme here. We looked over it and we said, maybe we'll say a word about it. We said, nah. Then we looked at it and then we looked down here and we're like, what the? All right. It's kind of like as if it were. So here, let me read the Hebrew. Here in the Hebrew, it says, Elohim le hatzleini, le hatzil ani, right? Snatch, natsal ani, hatzil, right? Ani hatzileni, right? Here it says hatzi lano. Lano is for us. So I don't know if they was like trying to take the psalm from the so-called the singular sense, right, into a plural sense, right? But if they're presenting this as a psalm, that's not what it reads right there. Then they have Adonai, or some of the other Yehudis, instead of saying Yahweh, right? From a certain deference combined with certain trodden tradition, would say Adonai, or some would say Hashem, the name, but we say what it says, Yahuwah le Ezrati, for my Ezra. So le Ezra T. Interesting how they wrote it as T. That was clever. That was good because somebody seen that le like le Ezra T. Le Ezra T. Right. Then here they have Hushu. I'm like, what? Hushu what? Who shoe you that? Who shoe them that? Right? It's not that. It's supposed to be Husha, Husha, Husha. Not Husha, but Husha, Husha. So we have, it says Husha, and as we brought out, Husha means like to hurry. So let's kind of just show the base words right here. Like make haste. The words make haste are not there. It's italicized. The italics words here in this first verse are not there. The words a psalm is not there. The word make haste is not there. All right. Laminatziyah lit Dawi, to chief musician of David, le Hazakir. Le Hazakir to Zakar. All right. Le Hazakir. So the root word Zakar in the Hefil sense is cause to remember. Hazakir. Right. Cause to remember. May he bring to remembrance, may he make memorial, make mention, bring. Remember we were talking about handwriting and the memory. I think this is a very interesting podcast here, just to seal it with this right here. And then it says to deliver me, right? So here, right, Elohim lehatzaleni, right? So the root word is natsal. When natsal is built into its proper form, right, for the context here, right, it's the Hefil form, right, the Hefil form. But the base sense of it, even over here, tells us to take away. The translator says to deliver, and they put it in like a kind of a religious context as it's translated, from enemies or troubles or death. But the more force of the word from natsal, natsal means to snatch, right? That's why I found this particular meme, at least the top portion. So, I definitely would give them, a halfway passing grade, but the bottom part is it misrepresents the psalm because look, they say Tehillim 70 here, and that's not what the 70 read unless they have another manuscript. But to the good portion of the work here is they say snatch me away. Take me away, snatch me away. But the force of the word, once again, natsal in le hatzaleni, the Hefil sense of natsal, natsal in the Hefil sense, hatzil, le hatzale, that to snatch ani, le hatzale ani, I, le hatzaleni, to snatch away, snatch me away, right? Literally, to snatch somebody away out of harm, right? Snatch them. Jacob, the patriarch, said, that after he had wrestled with the angel, he said that he had seen Elohim face to face, and the translator translates, and my life is preserved. But when you read the word, it's the natsal. He said, actually, my life, I think the translator translated my life, but my soul is snatched. When I saw that in the Hebrew, I said, man, if I translate this like, and my soul is snatched, people might, start to think about the Babylonian confusion. That's why we have to come out of Babylon, you know what I mean? Empty that out, you know what I mean? But the sense of my soul is snatched out of harm's way. Like literally if somebody's in immediate danger, and the only thing you can do is just to drape them up and pull them out the way. And of course, they're going to be surprised because they might not see the danger, you know what I mean? And they might be, why you snatch me that way? But that's the force of it, right? So that one can understand when speaking to the boss of it. You know what I mean? So right here, le make haste, right? Make haste to help me. So le Ezra, help, Ezra, help, Ezra-T, my help, my assistance, right? So here, Yahweh, oh he who be, who he be. So first, he says Elohim, calling upon the creator, the judge, the ruler, but particularly in the sense of the judge in this situation. Elohim le hatzaleni, snatch ani, snatch I, Yahweh, oh he who be, le Ezra-T, right? For my Ezra, for my help, my Ezra, le Ezra-T, Husha. So here, right there, here, Husha. So it's Husha, right? Make haste, hurry, Husha. Like somebody says, I'll be there. and you say husha, 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 husha. Almost like hurry. Like it has an interesting sound. It sounds similar to some things that we say or we intend to say, even in the other languages, right? Husha, husha, right? In the figurative sense, is to be eager, right? In the figure of speech, directly is to hurry, but husha, right? See, hushu, you see why this other one is wrong? Let me just point this out. Why this other one is wrong. It's wrong right here because when it says le hatzilanu, it should have been le hatzileni, ani, le hatzileni. Anu is us and ani is I, right? They have Adonai. Okay, we understand their religious deference to the Yahweh there, but actually says Yahweh. Then it says le ezrati, le ezrati. That there is correct, right? So the Elohim, the Ezrati, correct. But then it says Hushu. Hushu, okay, in the text it says Husha. Husha is speaking to a man, like a command to a man to hurry, to be eager to hurry up. Saying Hushu is speaking to many men. You see what I'm saying? Many men, many men, right? But that doesn't fit the context, right? Of something to, a prayer, a word to Yahweh Eloheinu, right? So I just want to point that out. That's the reason why we say, this would be a good clip. You know what I mean, right here, and put it out. Ones and ones that do it, just let us know you've done it. You know what I mean, so we can encourage the work. You know what I'm saying? And one can also monetize it, but let us know that you done did it. You know what I mean? Yes, because it says to bless. Yes, so right here, snatch me, but the English is not too bad. But Elohim, snatch me away. Right? Yahweh, Jehovah, help me. Hurry. Chusha, chusha. Hurry. So right here, brothers and sisters and brothers, let's bring this to a seal right here, here. Give thanks for your time. Brothers and sisters, and I hope and pray that, some word is edifying, like encouraging and helpful in the walk, in the way, the truth, and life of the King of Kings Christ, Jesus Christ, Yeshua Ha, no Tzri, Jesus of Nazareth. Here, as we move forward to the new day, may Yahweh bless thy, keep thy, cause his face is great, shun the eye, and I give the eye Yeshua Shalom. Right? Yes, my brothers and sisters and others, be well. Laila Tov, a good night, and of course, a Boker Tov, a good day, a new day. You know what I mean? Yes. In the way, truth, and life. Amen. And thank you. Give thanks. Toda Rabba. Toda Hashem. Toda Yahweh.
Thank you. Whatever you have done. Thank you, my brethren, for all your contributions.
This discipleship radio broadcast has been made possible by donations from audience and listeners like you. Give thanks. Thank you very much, Miss Ghana. This discipleship radio broadcast has been made possible by donations from audience and listeners like you. Give thanks. Thank you very much, Miss Ghana.
Thank you. Whatever you have done. Thank you, my brethren, for all your contributions.
Yes. I know some ones might want to remain anonymous. You know what I mean? Or others might want to just get a shout out. We'll be willing to do that. Make I and I know, in the future, and we'll seek to do that. But because of some ones just want to keep it, you know what I mean? The right hand, left hand thing. But here, Yeshua Shalom, y'all. LOJ.
Lion of Judah shall break every chain.
separation.
Come be a part of. Come be a part of.
Line of Juice Society.
Come be a part of. Come be a part of.
Alright, MOJ, Line of Juice Society.
Come be a part of. Come be a part of.
Alright, MOJ, Line of Juice Society.
Where Hebrew feels like home.
I hope one's enjoyed that food for thought.